Good evening or good morning, wherever you may be. This is Bungles After Dark with your salty, sexy voice, Gaming Jason, doing his intro as always. Today's talking point will be another top 3 episode, and what are we talking about today? The Tengu, the bird people, the awesome mythical creatures that fly around and have a guy Sojourn with a long ass nose who's pretty cool if I do say so myself. But instead of me talking about it all by myself, I will bring in my partner, as always, Gaming Greg. How are you, sir?
Hello and good day to you, salty, sexy person.
I thought I said sultry.
Sultry. Oh, sultry. That's totally different from salty.
I could be salty too. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know if you were trying to make yourself into a delicious snack or.
Ooh, that would be nice. I could make myself into a salty, delicious snack. The misao will definitely wanna kind of chew on that.
I'm not doing the misao voice.
Maybe misao will not be joining us today.
I don't know. We'll see. But no, it's good to be here. It's been for those of you that don't know, behind the scene, it's only been like 2 days.
Yeah.
Since we last recorded something, so it's kind of like we're doing this all over again. Hooray! But I am excited to do the Descension, do the Tengu, and I'm also more excited that we have a special guest that we've been pursuing, and glad we were able to get everybody's scheduled synced up, because last time we kind of dropped the ball.
But just a little bit. So who better to talk about Tengu than the person who helped design Tengu, at least from a figure aspect? Ben from Robot Dice Explosion. How are you doing, sir? Sorry, I kind of just jumped the gun on that one there.
That's good. I was just thinking about whether I take a sip of tea now or later, and I judged that just about correctly.
It's all good. It would have just become an ASMR thing at that point for those listeners that are into that tea sipping.
We do have the gaming with the guys game that if the dog barks in the background, which is usually inevitable,
take a drink.
Take a drink.
Oh, yes. I mean, I suppose it is like 9:10 on a Saturday night. I should probably be having something that's not tea, but here we are.
We don't want you necessarily dropping out before we're done. But it's great to have you. And now, how were you? So Jason kind of clued me in a little bit, but just for you and for other people who might not be familiar, what was your involvement with the Tengu? You helped design figures? That's what I'm a little fuzzy-ish on.
Right. So I started sculpting for GCT sometime in 2014, I think. Okay. Maybe 2015, and I started playing in 2013 with the Indiegogo and the second edition and the Ito release. Okay. And yeah, I managed to talk to Toby, who was the designer at the time at Salute, and he gave me a little work, and then just turned around after I'd done a few sculpts and said, we need a whole new faction sculpting. I was like, oh, okay, cool. This was about the same time as I was working on like the Masons for the original Guild Ball release as well. Okay. So yeah, I wouldn't say, I think it would be giving me way too much credit to say I designed the Tengu. I sculpted all of them. Okay. But I was provided with a lot of really good artwork, including like a breakdown of the different species, body shapes and sizes and stuff, which was really useful. So a bunch of the work was just setting up those different archetypes, just in like an A pose or a T pose, and it's just a neutral pose. I don't know if people will know what I mean.
I was going to say.
Well, you can imagine like a T pose is arms straight out. You can't see, but an A is more like arms down at 45. So I did like the base meshes, all the basic sculpts for them, and then started posing, adding armor, and all that sort of stuff. So there were no finished sculpts for the first couple of months of the work on that. Bunch of work on how the wings would work and counting how many primaries and secondary coverts and all the like went a bit over the top. I probably wouldn't go quite as detailed now with the wing stuff.
It's okay. Overachiever first time.
I mean, so Bushido had become very quickly my favorite game, and before I started working with Toby on the sculpts, I had said to myself, well, if there's a company I could sculpt for, it would be GCT. That'd be fantastic. And then I started doing it. So obviously, being given the responsibility of this faction with all this really cool artwork, I just sort of threw myself in. And at the time, I was working part-time at a shop, so I was getting up at like 5, 6 in the morning, working till about 1, and then coming home and then just sculpting.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was. We couldn't do it now.
No,
hey.
that takes a lot. And I will say, you know, and I enjoy a lot of the different factions. And I don't have the Tengu, although Grandmaster Cody, who owns everything. You know, when I look at the Tengu, and I think it just goes with any of the games, but it really is, the wings really make those figures. They're just absolutely gorgeous. And then if I had any skill at painting, I could probably make them look decent. So that, I think that's the biggest thing for me is I want to get them, but it's like, I suck at painting and I'm not going to do that justice. So I'll go with Ito. Because I could paint.
Actually, like, they're very stylized, the wings. And at the time, I'd seen the Games Workshop had brought out, I don't know, something with wings. Maybe it was the Carl Franz on Griffin or something like that.
Probably. They used to have the swooping hawks, and then, Lord only knows. They have so many different things.
But they were quite stylized, and I liked the particular way in which they were stylized. And it also meant that they were a lot less work of just like really finely texturing them. And often when you do that sculpting, you can just turn into noise. You see it with fur sometimes, where people... especially if it's like classic putty sculpt where someone's like really just trying to get it done quickly, it just becomes a bit, I don't know, messy and noisy. And this was basically, I based it on the Games Workshop approach, which saves some time, and I think it's pretty effective, and it takes a wash quite well without pooling too much and so on. So
so you're ahead of the time, not knowing that contrast was on the way, with the washes and everything. Because I'll be honest, as a self-identified terrible painter, contrast paints are my friend.
Yeah, everybody's friends. As a speed painter, that's like when I decide to paint, like when like all the planets line up, it's like, all right, contrast paint, go, get me done.
I still haven't even tried it. Like, not even once, not pop to pot. I do use Vallejo glaze medium a lot, which gives, the way I choose to use it now does give a similar effect. Yeah, it's really quick for the way that I paint now. So I can appreciate it.
Well, again, the way that, and when Games Workshop put out the contrast, and now everybody else is jumping on board with speed paint and whatever paint and this. Again, for the average or the casual painter or whatnot that's trying to get it and wanting to get something to the tabletop painted, those things are a godsend.
Absolutely.
Especially with how much GW stuff you got to paint and mortgage out a second house just to afford your army.
There's the reason why I don't play those games anymore. Too many models.
Too many models. Yes, I agree. But let's to kind of get everything back on track, because we have been known to meander. But no, I actually
favorite part of the podcast.
And I'm thinking Grandmaster Cody is going to be very jealous because he is the painter of our group, and and he I'm sure he would have a billion questions about the design process and model and things like that. So sometimes
there is two together. I did on a whim one day on Discord write a little, I don't know, story about how the Tengu, or my memory of the Tengu design process, and I pinned it for a while, but it's gone now. But I did copy it into a Google Doc, so I might give you a link to that, and then you can post it up.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be great.
Absolutely. That'd be. I mean, I honestly would be fascinated just to see how it is, just because, it's always interesting to see into the mind of how things develop. I mean, but how do the rules come about? How do the figures come about? How do the artwork for it, and then turning that artwork into something that now I'm playing on a tabletop and trying not to drop and shatter into a million pieces, or find the right size foam to put in. So all those things.
I've moved away from foam, magnets and trays.
Everybody's with Magnarax. Yeah.
I've got my own homemade one. I've got a laser cutter, and I designed my own MDF one.
There you go.
Not as good. It's a lot cheaper.
I've been looking at a Magnarack right now just for my old privateer press bag, and it cost me as much as how much the privateer press bag costs brand new, even though it's an old product. Because I'm like, damn, I basically just bought another bag.
Yeah, they're very robust.
Well, that's why I was like, I'm not too worried about it, but it was just like, damn, it's like $7 more, and I bought another one of these bags. I think it's discontinued, but still.
I don't know. I think the only thing I have a fear of putting magnets in there, not that the magnet racks work great. So, and I've seen people even put their miniatures into lunch boxes, metal lunch boxes, and they don't budge. So that's not my fear. And fear is probably the wrong word for it. The thing that annoys me when I put my magnets on my bases is because, and again, this goes back to my War Machine days. We use the steel rings to do zones, and I'm going to move my guy and clink.
I do get the occasional tape measure mishap.
Yeah. It swings a little too close, and then the next thing you know, you're stuck on there. But yeah, so I eventually I will stop being an old grognard, and I will break down and put magnets and store things with magnetize. It's just I got so much foam.
Yeah.
Kind of looking behind me, and I'm like, I got so much foam, it's kind of hard to break the habit. But eventually I will.
I just need to do it so that way I can free up space in his bag, because I use his bag as my secondary storage unit.
That's the other trick too.
I got my small pack.
I'd love to be able to carry more of my figures in my own bag, but I can't. So there's that.
Again, I'm looking at getting the Magna Rack soon.
I think we'll do a podcast sometime, Jason, of the trials and tribulations of father and son gaming, and that might be a good 20
I'm not there yet.
It'll come sooner than you think. It starts.
I look forward to it. He's only 4 though, so little way.
I think he started with me with at least Pokemon cards to teach me how to read when I was
6 or 7. No, 6 or 7.
6.
It was Pokemon cards, and you ducked learning how to read really well with that.
When all the college kids think that they're going to gang up on me to get me for easy points, and you guys made me basically a slogging deck where they weren't going to be able to do that, then it's like, crap.
So yeah, gosh, see, and I said I wasn't going to go off rails, but we're off the rails. So the story behind it, and I'll try to be quick about it. When Jason was young and when he was growing up, we were growing up. I'm still growing up. We lived in a college town. And the bookstore there would run their Pokemon League. And so the kids are all trying to get their little badges. Oh, I'm going to get my gym badge. And I would go in and I just put together some cards and whatnot. Well, all of Jason's uncles, one of them worked at a card store in a different town, and all of them would play the Pokemon cards because, well, Jason plays it. So it just gave them a reason to tell their wives, well, I'm just wanting to play something with Jason, so I got to buy Pokemon cards. Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, whatever. So they would play with him, and then they would build him these decks. So as Jason said, some of the college kids would come in, and they want to just get their badges really quick and get out of there. So they would just rickroll some of these kids. They'd rickroll me, and then they'd come to Jason. And they're thinking, okay, this thing's going to be done in 5 minutes. Kid doesn't even know how to read very well. Little do they know that we would build Jason's decks to be these brawler things that he could get his creatures out, and you're going to have to really just blow through him. Jason's not going to beat you, but it's just a grind. 30 minutes in, they're still playing against you. You could see the look on their eyes like, what the hell? I know every combo, and this kid's just mashing the A button and just kicking ass. So yeah, that would. So eventually, then some of the college kids then would just kind of veer off and not necessarily play against Jason, so Jason would play against his own age group. But it was Pokemon cards, then it was Hero Clicks, then it was Monster Apocalypse. Then we got into 40K,
GW the first time, and then Privateer, and so on.
And then to the glorious Every Damn Game His Father Can Find. That's small and not GW. And that's where we're at today. Which brings us to what we're doing today, which is talking about Tengu. And Descension and our top 3 figures. Now, I'm going to throw this out to everybody, more the listeners and everybody. Whenever we do these top 3s, are they going to be competitive? Maybe not, but they are favorite figures. They are figures that we include in our list. They are figures that annoy us because we play against them constantly and they totally destroy us, whether it's by luck of dice or other. We've just learned to have an outsized fear of that figure. So maybe that's why it's in our list. So kind of keep that in mind as we're doing it. But hopefully as newer players are listening, or maybe even veteran players that are thinking of dipping their toe into a new faction, as it were, you'll get an idea of some figures that might be on your to-watch list or consider list to throw into a list.
Or to throw into your shopping cart.
Or into your shopping cart, absolutely. So that being said, we're going to start, and we're going to do like we did the last time. Instead of just listening to me or Jason go blah, 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 blah for a half hour. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about our number 3 figures, our number 2 figures, and then our number 1 figures. So it'll be Jason, then me, then Ben.
That's great. That gives me time to actually order my list.
That's all right.
Good
Believe
enough.
me, that's the hardest part. Cody is famous for changing his list right when we come up to him. He goes, "I was going to have this. I've checked
But I
that out.
changed
And I'm
my
going
mind."
with this." So it's
And luckily,
nothing new for us.
I've had my list in ink for a while now because I had to actually dig through the paperwork to find it.
Okay. Well, I will let
Yeah.
you kick it off, sir. I'll do the sharing. So just let me know, and then I'll toss it up.
So this was my first. So actually, the funny thing is after talking with one of our guys at the store who I play against pretty regularly, he brought out Tengu for the first time for the local tournament that we're going to be doing up here in the Chicago area, up in Rockford. And I was like, oh goddamn, I'm kind of glad that this is my number 3 because fuck this guy. Also, Ben, feel free to swear all you want. This makes it easier for me just to be like explicit.
Good.
Super easy.
I always swear quite a bit, and I found out I was on Bushido cast, and I found out that Craig edits out a bunch of the swears.
Oh yeah, we don't do that.
Yeah.
We
So
we just click the label that says explicit, so that way people know like there will
Yeah.
be swearing.
Yeah.
It makes us edgy.
Makes it real.
Sure.
So my number 3 pick though for Tengu is Chirobo.
Oh, son of a bitch! I mean, no, that's awesome.
Number 3 though.
I mean, my number 3 and my number 1. I mean, I could have probably swapped him up, but my number 2. I mean, he could probably have swapped with my number 2. Maybe my number 1. I just think this model's cool, so he was going to be my number 1 no matter what. So Chirobo. So from Greg's expression, I'm guessing he's somewhere in his list, maybe.
Maybe. I'm not going to say where. He's possibly there.
So
Maybe
Chirobo,
I'm now going to change my list. Hold on. Keep talking. I'm gonna change
so 15 rice model, Tengu, Suzume, Bushi, 3 melee dice and a boost of 3, range 3 with a boost of 3, speed 5 with a boost of 2. Awesome. Generates 2 ki, holds a max of 6, holds a dagger with counter strike defense at 1. Fuck that. At -1. He has a short bow at -1 with range bands of 4, 8, and 12. He is armor 1, aware, camo 6, cloud walk, he flanks, and he has scout 1/1.
Nice.
All those pretty good, especially compared to a lot of the other Tengu. Just at least for the standard standard bird people that I would see, not like the giant ones like Buzembo or something. Then his key feats are athleticism and dash, which dash is what screwed me over and made me lose the 2-1 this last week at the store because I totally forgot that he had this and forgot what it did fully. So for athleticism, 2 ki, it's an active and only can be used on Chirobo. This model gains jump up and dodge 1 until the current activation is resolved. Sweet. Dash, which makes him super nasty and an awesome idol grabber, as I've now learned. This model gains agile and evasive until the end of the current activation, and may also make a 2-inch move at the end of its activation. So he can take off.
Yeah.
And then the real reason why he's at least in my top 3, and I mean, again, I could definitely see him as a number 2 spot, but I just like the other model that I picked. During the starting phase, target an enemy model within 8 inches. Model gains a stun marker. You don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Even though my opponent forgot to use it, it just gave me a slight advantage to be like, I could maybe come ahead with this, especially since I was using the Blood Brothers and I still really haven't used them that much.
It's the only saving grace if you're playing against Chirobo is the fact that your opponent will forget sometimes to use that stun marker.
Yep.
Because you've forgotten it because you've never faced it, so you can't remind them, and then they've forgotten it until all of a sudden they're like, damn it.
I know Cody was talking about it because I think it came up in our group chat where it's like Cody made his own specialized token. I think I know which marker it is for his Chirobo stun marker to throw on models to be like stunned.
It's better than marking your arms up like they used to do at tournaments to remind them of things.
That's what
They would write it on
you
their
do.
hand so that way when they would go for their dice or something, they'd see it and then remind themselves that they have to do certain things. It was hilarious.
Yep. So my top 3, my notes that I kind of made for Chirobo here after kind of going through his card. Agile and reasonable shooter. Agile now goes to fucking agile. And he's still a reasonable shooter if you needed him to shoot, but otherwise he definitely is really good at grabbing objectives, as I've learned. Has access to dash, which damn, I should have been looking at my damn paper. I should have brought this with me to the store on Thursday or Wednesday, which makes him really versatile. Again, he can get up the field really, really quick, just like all the other Tengus, but I mean, even faster and can avoid people with dash. and then 1 free stun marker. No, that doesn't require anything. That to me makes him, and I would pay 15 points for this model any day to get him, as long as if I'm not trying to go for like a different type of theme.
Yeah, I think 15 points is if not
Reasonable.
a bargain, it's properly priced for what he can do.
I think it's ludicrous.
Really? Okay.
I think for 15 rice, he's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't think he should be more expensive, but I think maybe he is a bit too good for the rice. Like I like where he occupies, but
he's kind of like that. He's kind of what I would want to almost categorize now. I'm making this up on the spot. The Bushido bargain bin, where it's like, damn, he's really good for what he is, and I only had to pay how much for him. So basically, models almost like Wasapu, Masunagi go in there, Haruto, like those types of models where it's like, damn, you only had to pay how much rice for that, and you got great value for this.
See, I'm looking at him, and I'll freely admit he's somewhere in my top 3. You'll be surprised where. But he's really good at being hard to pin down. He's really good at grabbing objectives and really good threatening the back lines. I guess I'm just not seeing him as I think of those figures that really have a high rice cost as more like a frontline brawler, and he's good, but he ain't like that. If he gets stuck in, he's going to get pounded.
And
I think it's because he's competent at like everything he's trying to do. So in melee, he'll do okay. Like he's got 3 melee. You said like hell no to counter-strike defense 1, but if you think about it, if you're putting both dice into defense that you've got, well, it's not too bad. It depends who you're going against.
I've just had bad experience with counter-strike defense. That's the only reason why I said that.
And I think the other thing we all have to keep in mind too is, so yeah, you're putting 2 into defense, putting it into counter-strike, but depending on what other figures you have in there, it's really easy to get parry 1 on top of that. So
yeah, and if you look at the starter set Tengu with the coordinated attack, start ganging up on people, that's, I mean, obviously it doesn't help him, but
helps the others.
Start exhausting people and stuff, it can work out quite well eventually.
Oh yeah.
But then like his shooting is good, like it's not powerful, but
not Bazembo fantastical, but
Bazembo almost one-shotted Wasapu on Wednesday from the midline. I was like, oh crap.
Yeah, I mean, he almost one-shotted my my Kaihime. He was really unlucky on the damage roll at this tournament and was left on 1 wound. Died immediately the next activation, but there you go. But yeah, so he's competent at both the things he does. He's fast, of course. He's got the 2 boost, but he's got the scout as well. You can flank him if you want to. Like he's got quite a lot of tools, and then that stunned marker is amazing. So he's like a support for that. He's ranged if you want him to be. He's not a slouch in combat, even though he will struggle to get out of it. But if you're playing Suzumi, you're going to have special cards that will probably help with that. If you play Blue Gale, you'll be able to get him out in the start phase. So yeah, I love him. I think he's amazing for 15 rice, especially if you compare him to, is it Shubo? The other the starter set archer? Right, don't get up on the board. I'll be there any second on the app.
The app, I think so.
Probably. The only thing, and I mean, you covered it real quick. I mean, the only real downside that I can see with him, besides just all the good points that you made, Ben, is I just am like, he's not the best in melee, and I can definitely vouch for that fighting against him this week.
He's a Sparrow. They're all shit in melee, basically.
I know. I just needed to kind of say something. Whereas, like, this is kind of his one downside. Otherwise, I mean, like, if you want him in most of your war bands, unless if there's a restriction on why you can't take him particularly, he's definitely someone who's like, yeah, you're going in this list one way or another if I can get you in here.
I'm pretty sure you can go in all 3 themes as well because of that 3 melee.
So there you go. If you have no reason not to take him unless if you're trying to do something creative.
I find him really hard not to put in a list.
I mean, the stun token alone.
Especially if you want to run the Dark Pilgrim. He works really nicely with that. It's just guaranteed.
It's a must have.
The range, it's guaranteed.
So that is my number 3. So I'll pass the baton off to you then, Greg, to see what your number 3 is if you didn't take Torobo.
Well, I'm
interested.
I may have taken him, but I will say he is not my number 3. I think my number 3 will shock and amaze everyone, and I don't know why I just did what I just did. There we go. I'm doubling it here. All right, so my number 3 is what I would probably say is the premier archer in all of Bushido.
Oh, okay. Damn. Okay, I'm now wondering if I missed something and who your number 2 and number 1 are. If Zembo's your number 3.
I think we have to be honest. He's not an archer. He's a bolt thrower with wings.
Yeah,
He is. I mean, after looking at the model in person, because I hadn't actually. It's been a while since I've seen the model in person, and I'm just like, he's shooting like a giant harpoon at this point. Like it's okay to have brutal 1. Honestly, he should have brutal 2. How big the damn thing is, or give him critical strike or something like that for how big it is.
So aside from the model just being absolutely cool, and I'll say I have a thing for archers. I just like archers in general. He's 24 points of awesome at what he does. My 2 bullet points before I talk about his card is he's premier archer and he's a solid warrior. He can, he could, no matter how he's doing it, he's holding his own in combat, but he really is freaking good at shooting things to death. So who is Bazembo? We'll say almost like it's like one of those behind the curtains or something. Who is
number
Bazembo?
3?
Well, he's a 24 rice Tengu Kurama Bushi. Wow, that was hard to say. I gotta smack the lips there. His stats are: he has a 3 melee pool, he has a 3 range, he has a 5 movement. That's just awesome.
That's all of the Tengus that are movement, which is awesome.
I've seen a few that are a little slower, but man, being able to shoot and move 5, it's Ito-esque. Except he has Cloud Walk,
which is even better.
2/8 on his key. He could boost his melee and he could boost his key for 3 each. Weapons for melee, he has a katana, which is +1 melee strength, push attack 1, push defense 0, and then he has his massive daiku, which is the big bow. Range strength +2, range bands 6, 12, 18. So on a 2-foot board, yeah, he's shooting you turn 1 and not losing any sleep over doing that. And then the next thing that makes this thing so freaking good: Pierce 2, Brutal 1, of course, Reload 1. Traits: Armor 2, Courage 2. So yeah, good luck trying to control him. Or no, fear checks, I should say. Sorry, I always get those two confused. They're about the same. Cloud Walk, Prowess, Defense. So that's kind of interesting. And range. I can only think of... Well, I know of one other model for sure that has range prowess. I think there might be one other one, but I'm not 100% sure. My favorite forlorn lover, Koga, is the other with the ranged prowess. Mm-hmm. But he has ranged prowess and melee, so he's better than the big bird. No. Fear 5, and Spirit 1. Traits: he has quick reload. For 3 key active, it affects him. You can only do it once per turn. And let's just remove all those reload markers, so that way I could just become a machine gun and shoot everything down. Wing Buffet, not Wing Buffet. That's us in the United States. I really like a good buffet myself. Wing Buffet, 2 key active. It's a pulse, base to base. All models in the pulse's area of effect, which apparently is whatever's in base to base with him, must succeed a size challenge 6 or be moved D3 inches directly away from this model. So if you decide that you're gonna, dogpile him and jump everybody on top of him, he bats his wings and everybody has to try to make a test and fly away, and then he shoots you.
Yep.
Hooray. And then Deadeye. 3 key, active, personal. Until the end of the current activation, this model ignores cover and tiny modifiers to ranged attacks. The opposing player may not nominate a new target for this ranged attack. So yeah, you thought you had cover? Nah. You thought you could just be small and not be murdered? No, it's just now you're murdered twice over. So yeah, that's all horrible stuff. And then on top of all that, he has a unique effect. While this model is in play, when a Bushi model spends a virtue token, you may choose the following effect. This model gains Prowess Defense 1 until the end of the current melee exchange. So he even buffs other figures that are going to be fighting against him. So, what can't this guy do? Well, he can do whatever he wants because he's a big damn bird with a bow.
Yep.
But his strengths. And so now I'll get into my bullet points. My strengths. So his first strength should be pretty. It's the massive Daiku, his big bow. I mean, +2 range, brutal 1, pierce 2, awesome range in general. 6, 12, 18. That's just gross. Makes Mazembo, if he is not the best archer in the game, I'd like to see
vying
who
for that
people
top
think.
spot.
I'd say he's got to be top spot out of everybody. And then you add on top of that with range prowess to be able to re-roll when he screws things up, or I screw things up because I have dice problems. He's just great. I mean, totally good. Add on to that, second bullet point, the key feats. Quick reload. Now, I'm an Edo player, and I abuse Kahimi to the nth degree. You know, I have people that are just designed to just feed her key, so that way she becomes a machine gun. This would be a rapid firing howitzer that's going off, because you could just stuff him with key, 3 key, and he's just going bang, 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 bang with the giant, every turn. As long as you keep him chuck full of key, he's going to be able to murder things. And then Deadeye, so people are, I'm going to hug cover, so that way I'm going to hug some terrain so I can get cover. He's like, nah, and just you lose that benefit, and then he killed you.
Or you're going to take a model that provides mobile cover like Ryujin. Yeah, I don't care about that.
Doesn't care. He'll just shoot you dead no matter what. Or you're Master Kari. You're like, hey, I'm small and super agile. You can't hit me. And yeah, no, I don't care about tiny. So there's that. So again, he just simply outclasses all the other archers, in my opinion, and provides an insane amount of damage. Again, depending on your dice rolls. Brutal 1 helps you take that to success level 9. So instead of if you're shooting at medium range with no other modifiers in effect, instead of being on success level 3 or success level 4, and that's a huge difference. Even when you roll on the low damage. Last few things for strengths on him that I gave him. His virtue effect, it really is good. It helps other models with defensive reroll. So if you have again, in a faction that doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of reroll within it, being able to provide it, even if it's through a virtue token, really could become very helpful. And then wing buffet, because again, his big thing is he wants to shoot things. So having the ability, now granted, it's not a guarantee, and size tests are relatively easy to pass. Although a 6 is a little bit challenging on 2 dice, right? It'll be
that's right. 2 dice
small, so 2 dice. So they should pass, but at least it does give you the opportunity to clear some things off and then shoot. Clear them off as they're on top of you and then shoot them in the face. Which is really a strength.
Is it's active, so you can do it before he activates and then choose accordingly. So you use it, and if it doesn't work, okay, well, I'll go do something else.
I'll have somebody else.
But otherwise, I blow your guys away, and then it's like, oh, cool, now I have space, and then I just shoot you.
Move away and shoot you, or not move.
He doesn't even need to move at that point. If I'm in close range, I'm gonna be like, oh, this is just easy pickings now, and just hope for max damage.
Success level 4, and I didn't move. Bye bye.
Fives, dice +2.
Exactly. So weaknesses. Some will argue with me. He's an average melee fighter. Now, don't get me wrong. He's no slouch. He's a good melee fighter, and he can boost his melee to get up if he needs to. But let's be honest, he's saving his key to be able to either reload or get the Deadeye when needed. So dumping it into melee is not necessarily something he's going to be wanting to do. Push defense 0 does help if he needs to get somebody off, but he's blowing an action to do it. Can't spend key on the boost to range.
That's for obvious reasons. If you could boost his range,
I understand that, but if he had to look at one weakness when he needs that extra die, he isn't able to pull it out. Now, again, I can't see him needing. I don't see him needing that 4th die because he's trying to make sure that he doesn't get that ridiculous level. But it's something there. And then last but not least, it's the bane of all things in Bushido, the dreaded medium or large base, which somewhat makes them susceptible to range attacks. There are ways to mitigate it, I understand. But as soon as you put that M or L on a figure, every other mediocre archer in the game is now gunning for you. So that's what it boils down to. Again, I love this figure. Could he have been higher in my list? Yes, but maybe as you see my other choices, I'm leaning towards something else in general. But he is so good. He's so good at what he does.
He does, and fighting him on Wednesday definitely showed that to me. And the only way I could deal with him was kind of getting him into melee. But I also had to use Karu for that, and he'd already killed Karu, so it's just a last stand Karu that's like I don't care at this point. So we're going for this.
It's the I don't care Karu. Ooh.
It was pretty much. So I mean, he messed him up before he died, but I mean, if he fights someone that's probably more of like a melee heavy focus guy, he'll struggle a little. In my opinion, at least, or at least in my experience when I fought against him this last week.
I think my argument for him probably being the best archer in the game is less about how the sheer amount of damage that he can do, but the consistency of it. And the thing about range attacks is you don't tend to get crazy high success levels. Last edition, because there was a chance of you rolling a 10 rather than an 8, you could get higher success levels. But in this edition, I think range has taken a bit of it. So normally what you do to sort of increase your success level or chance of a good one is roll that extra die or boost. He doesn't have that, but the brutal and the prowess just go together to make him never really need an extra die.
Agreed.
And then that range just means that, like, if you shoot, it's unlikely he's going to shoot you at long range. I mean, if he moves and shoots you, that's still a 17-inch threat range. So terrifying.
It's
it's definitely terrifying. And any of the archers that I have used with Brutal 1, I know the one sister has it too. I'm not gonna lie, like I sometimes forget. I'm like, oh wait, that's right. This has Brutal on the bow. This is awesome.
It's massive. Brutal 1. I mean, models that have Brutal 2 in combat are horrifying, but yeah. And then Deadeye just being, I disagree with the ruling on this, but Deadeye gets rid of camo.
That's disgusting. I wasn't 100% sure on that, but I knew that was something.
My argument would be there's no comma after cover, so it doesn't say it ignores cover and tiny modifiers. It says it ignores cover and tiny modifiers. So I think it shouldn't ignore cover completely. It should ignore the modifier. But that's me. It means if you go up against Bazembo with ninjas, you lose.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it that way.
Smoke bombs, lots and lots of smoke bombs.
Yeah, block that line of sight. It's
tricky. It's not cheap, but Tengu can channel pretty well. So
when I was playing against Bazembo, like he was maxed, he was topped off on Ki without even like a second blink. Where it's like, so Bazembo's always quick reloading and whatever else you want to do. I didn't have anything cool to like throw mobile cover up or anything like that, but it's just like, yeah, that's fine. I just quick reload. So beginning next turn, you're getting shot again and probably killing whatever he's shooting.
Yeah. He's he is. I mean, he is. He controls the board. He's gonna make you think about things because you can't hide behind anything. The best that I shouldn't say that. The best that you could do is block his line of sight completely, so he can't shoot you. And God forbid they come up. Whoever wins something that gets a card that allows him to be able to, do the Hawkeye, shoot over here, look over there as I'm shooting that way, and the next thing you know, I'm getting hit by a truck. But yeah, he's my number.
The way I dealt with him at the tournament I went to recently was I let a guy, he may die. It wasn't let, like it happened. It was always. But then I just got into base contact with him, and I just did my best to stay there at all times. And he got out and go back in, and I eventually killed him with Akane. But yeah, if he's engaged, he's not shooting. So
grapple him. That would be another thing to do. And the snakes are somewhat good at grappling. I just constantly forget to do grapple.
Or if you can figure out a way, or if you can figure out how to knock him down, that probably will help too.
Yeah. So there's ways to deal with him. But in general, I think he's properly pointed. I think he's really, really good. I like him. I just think I'm looking for I don't want to say he's one-dimensional, but I guess I'm going to say he's one-dimensional.
I think you're right.
You know what he's going to do.
I think you're absolutely right. I think he's also the model that when people first come to Descension, they go, "Oh, I'll take him."
Oh yeah,
and he's kind of Descension on easy mode, which doesn't. he's a good model, and I don't judge people for putting him in lists or anything, but I think he's almost like a distraction from all the things that the Tengu actually do.
Mhm.
A lot of the maneuverability. Yeah, he's moved 5, but
He's not really worrying about that. That's just a bad added feature to him. His thing is, again, I'm just going to shoot. I'm going to stand here nice and far away and just shoot you as much as I want and blow holes through your army if I'm doing it right.
Yeah.
He is your sniper. Sniper
100%.
/ artillery.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's more of an artillery piece than a sniper.
All right. Okay, so that is Bazembo. I love him. He's great. Let's give him applause. Yay. All right. Ben, what is your number 3 figure?
I actually have to commit now.
Yeah.
The big decision.
I literally only decided halfway through talking about Bazembo. We were talking about bang for your buck and how Tarobo was pretty great, and then we were talking a little bit about Channel. So Rio Hobo,
All right.
the 8 rice Koroko Shisai.
Get him up here in just a second because I'm doing things as backwards as humanly possible on my computer.
Oh, okay.
Here he is. Come on. I think my wife is doing something with the computer right now.
So he is, Tengu Koroko Shisai for 8 rice. It's only 2 melee pool, but he can boost that for 3. He's got 2 range, you don't care. He's got 5 movement, can't boost it, so that restricts his theme usage. So he's only usable in White Mesa, I think. He's 2 key 8 with the boost for 3, and he's got the 5 wounds that you'd expect. He's unarmed with -2 damage. Aware Channel 2/6. Cloudwalk Spirit 1, Leech 2/6, and Weak. His key feats His key feats of Cleansing, which is a complex for X, creating a pulse of X. Can't do it in base to base. He removes a bunch of markers from people, basically. Then he's got Healing Touch, which is X again. That is target base to base, though, and he heals X wounds. His virtue effect is models gain 6th sense. So for 8 rice, you've got a guy who's generating 2 key, and he can leech 2 key and channel 2 key every activation.
Mm-hmm.
Just for 8 rice, he seems amazing. You can compare him directly to Minor Kami.
Oh yeah.
And in that case, he's not durable. He's not going to last in any combat, but he's got more wounds. He's got probably comparable movement to a lot of them, probably around the average for those Kami. Mm-hmm. Channel, Leech, Spirit as well. Spirit's an interesting one because it's obviously it's purely defensive for him. It's funny because I love him. I don't know that I've got an awful lot to say about it because
I mean, it's tough to say it, but I mean, he fills a really important role in what Tengu does. I think I actually saw him when I was playing against him this last week at our local store, and I remember my comment to to one of our guys was, he reminds me of Daisuke, but honestly, he makes Daisuke look like a poor man. He gets the role done. And he's like a real big critical piece in some senses for being able to move all that key around to really do some of the really nasty stuff that Tengu can actually do. And then the added bonus is that if you need him to be selfish and hoard the key, he will generously reward you, whether it's healing a model a lot, if you need a big healing touch to save Bazembo for some reason, as an example, or just to pretty much remove any other status effect that's in the game. He removes the big nasty ones that a lot of people don't like that.
He's the epitome of a support model. And he's just so cheap. It just seems crazy to me because I don't care about his melee and his range. I'd love him to have a move boost, but for the things that he needs to do, he can keep up with everyone else pretty much. And just get on and do them. Healing Touch being simple, so he can move and do it. Mm-hmm. Cleansing is a bit rough because it's a complex.
But it's really good.
Really just even if it was only remove control, it's just incredible.
And
Well,
his virtue token too. I mean,
Sixth Sense is huge
the big thing
nowadays.
is
Yeah.
just to save yourself from getting surprised. But the other big thing too is if you're fighting anything with camo, aka dealing with ninjas. I mean, ninjas are gunning for this guy. If
I mean, if you've
Zembo's not
chosen
out
not
there.
to take Bazembo, then the Sixth Sense will be very handy for other people.
Well, just in general too.
Well, and
Yeah.
again, it not just to focus on ninjas. Let's not give ninja hate. Cult of Uri. If you want to
Cult,
ignore,
The
Breath of
Fog.
Uri on turn 1 and use Bazembo to nail some people at range.
Bakamona Darkness as well.
Yeah.
It's all useful, especially when you've got such good movement. Being able to, I mean, even just one of the things which Darkness shuts down is running.
Mhm.
You could run 2 inches if you wanted to. As you probably should just walk, and that would, in a faction where you're running, 7.5 inches mostly, being able to just sort of ignore darkness with a model, really useful.
Very, very useful.
And
Yeah.
with all the Koroko, the Shisai with their virtue effects. Actually, I suppose with Bazembo and is it Hokibo, the other big bird.
Yeah.
You being able to you take Paragon, but also you take Wisdom of the Mountains. So you can actually start the game with 3 virtue tokens already on models,
which is great, especially if you don't end up taking a model that gives out a virtue token a turn too. So
and what's great, so Paragon has to be attached to a model, but Wisdom of the Mountains, you decide during deployment who gets those tokens, and it doesn't have to be a Descension model. It can just be a friendly model. So that's really good. Also, that's a digression from Ryoho, but it just ties in really closely to the stuff that he does.
Yeah, for 8 rice, he's bringing everything. He's not bringing combat, but when you're buying him, you are essentially not buying it for that. You're buying a battery. It's just that this battery does a whole lot else that's super useful. And I mean, if it was just for the channel and leech, and for that 6 cents virtue token, he'd still be worth it. And at 8 rice, that would still be a deal. But throwing cleansing on there, which again, complex makes it kind of, but it's still, when you need it, you're glad you have it. And then because it's a pulse and it can affect
multiple models,
as long as your model that you want to do it to isn't too far away. I mean, you can remove a control marker or any of the others for 1 key.
And and that's usually what it needs to be. But if let's say somebody here, we'll talk worst case scenario. Not that it would really happen. If for some reason you had a bunch of Descension figures bunched up, and Kinu for Ito was there and sprayed them with a bunch of poison, for 3 key, if sitting back at 3 inches, you can remove 1 poison marker from each one of those figures. So whether it be a poison 1, 2, or 3 marker at that, because it just says remove markers. It doesn't tell you which one. You get to pick. So it's really good. And friendly and healing touch, let's say I got Bazembo or I get Hokibo down to 1 hit, and I just happen to have,
no, at that point,
Hobo has that, is able to, get up to 5 key, just come in, hey, how you doing? Now I have a fully healed figure that I got to deal with. So it's, I don't disagree with you. At 8 rice, it's really good. Sometimes I forget that.
It makes the next part of, because I remember, of course, that you guys have a structure to how you discuss things that I completely forgot there. But it makes the downsides bit quite difficult, because it all seems pretty justified at 8. Yeah, he's going to get absolutely murdered in combat. I mean, if he's in combat, you've messed up. You've got the most, maneuverable faction in the game. So, I mean, the downside, I think, is cleansing being a complex. That's a real bummer. But again, I've actually never used cleansing. I've used him so much for just channeling, honestly.
I mean, and that's totally justified to do him just for that. And sorry, I misread it that it's 2/6, so he can't suck everything up, but he can still suck extra key up if he needed to do the big heal. But I mean, a lot of the abilities sometimes that we've kind of learned going through this whole series, and even in our theme talks, a lot of the situational abilities, it's it's going to be situational and you don't use it, but then you're going to have that one game that you're going to be telling your friends for the ages because you actually used it, then it's gonna be like that saved my ass that game, and that got me the big win. So they exist for a reason. In a narrative play, it might mean more, but I mean, for otherwise, they just are really good tabletop stories that you tell your friends. That's like, damn, Ben, that guy, he pulled off the fucking impossible and actually used cleansing, and it won him the damn game. I'm done with this. This model is now. Then you have your other mates at the gaming store who then have an unreasonable fear of that model because you pulled it off against them, and then you get to bask in that glory for the rest of your life.
I don't think anybody's going to have an unreasonable fear of Rehobo, but they're going to.
I didn't think about that with Rocky either, but I mean, I know
no, that's Brian. That's not an unreasonable fear of Rocky that one of our guys in our meta has. It's an unreasonable hatred of Rocky.
I'm sorry, it goes to that.
There's a difference.
It becomes that instead. Sorry, Ben.
There's a difference, but that cleansing is going to be situational, and if you are going to use it, it's probably going to be for a game-changing reason. So it's just one of those things to have in your hip pocket, and then your opponent has to be aware of that. And if they're not,
they're going to be in.
It's going to come in. It has the potential to bite them in the ass.
Yeah.
So I totally like that at the number 3 spot, and I just like the figure in general. Now, why I didn't include it, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm not that experienced with it, or maybe I have higher value. I'm dazzled by high points. Maybe I don't know.
I think for me, like my top 3. I mean, it was really hard. This guy I put in there because when I first started messing about with Descension, because I'm an Ito player originally, and like my whole faction of Ito is fully painted and everything. Descension for me is like going to take that maneuverability aspect of Ito and like push it further. You're going to lose your hitting power, but like it's just pushing it in further and adding like the channel and leech. And Ryohobo was one of the first models that I started putting lists not around, but he was in there supporting the princesses and so on. So
I think you don't put him in. You don't put him in there and build around him. You use him to support what you're putting in there, and he does it very well. He's very, very good at it. All right.
Cool. Now I need to think about my number 2. You guys talk.
Yeah, I was going to say, all right, so let's he needs time to think about number 2. So Jason, why don't you get us rolling on our number 2s?
So my number 2 is let me make sure I'm reading this right. Sanja Kubo. Okay, he was my number 2. Like I said, I could probably swap him around with Torobo, but given I'm doing a little bit of future sightseeing, and especially playing against one of the guys at our store this last week, he has the potential to be rather nasty in combo plays, but otherwise as a whole, I also thought it was just kind of cool. He's basically just like Bird Sorcerer running around with like that cape, and it's just like, I have this dagger and I do other wizard stuff.
Just wizard stuff.
That's what I was calling him. I was calling him Bird Wizard the whole time because I couldn't remember the name. It was like, oh yeah, I'm attacking Bird Wizard. And it's like, oh, okay. So let's go over his stats real quick. So Sanja Kubo, Tengu, Karasu, and Shigunja. So 16 rice. So 1 point more than Torobo. Melee stat of 2, boost of 3. So not meant to really fight. Range of 3, which will be good for later. Speed 5, but you can't boost it. And then he holds 2/8 key with a boost at 3. So that's super nice. Has a ceremonial dagger at -2. And then he gets to call lightning. That's pretty sweet. With range bands of 2, 4, and 6. Abilities, Cloud Walk, like most of the other Tengu, and Spirit 1. So not likely going to be able to bully him when on post-key tests. Abilities, though, Curse Fate, which I know we talked about that last week, so that was also kind of like a nice Silver Moon. Like,
I think it's the best. It's the best one in the game.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't say Misao was going to show up, but she did. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So Curse Fate, that's a nice one. So for those of you who haven't had a chance to listen maybe to the Silver Moon theme talk episode, how Curse Fate works: roll a number of d6 equal to to 1 plus the success level of the opposed key test roll. Reroll any ones and dice with the same value. Until the end phase, target model considers any dice rolled that match those values to be valued at a feat of 1. So with Spirit 1, he's throwing 3 dice. So that actually gets really scary really quick, especially who you're picking on, because 1 key models if you win high enough, you could almost, if they screw up their roll and you get the
Success
max it
level
at an
5, you're just making
you
everything that they
basically
roll.
say that that model is destined to die, or that model is basically it needs to find something else to do. So hope that you're playing like an idle type mission to do something, because if you're playing zones, that model is very much dead. So that's a huge one. And then his second ability is Raijin's Rage 2, and it's an instant. When this model makes a successful ranged attack, after the attack is resolved, but before the activation ends, it may make an additional ranged attack against a model within 3 inches of the last model targeted. This ranged attack is considered in the medium range band and ignores range, line of sight, and camouflage. So basically, what the Grey Pilgrim, and I think Dark Pilgrim has it as well.
No, not the Dark.
No,
Pilgrim.
not
Okay, so just what Grey Pilgrim has. So
yeah,
totally.
And I forget there's another model in
Ryu has it.
Little girl has it.
Yeah,
little lightning girl.
Mizuchi, or not Mizuchi. Mizuchi is the dragon, but
Mizuki,
I know who you're talking about.
Mizuki or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
So point being is that chain lightning, super awesome. Costs a lot of ki though, so it can be kind of really ki hungry. So he's definitely kind of sucking up a lot of ki. But if you can funnel ki to him, doesn't care. Unique effects though. A model damaged by Call Lightning or Raijin's Rage gains a stun marker. Oh my gosh, shocking.
Guess who's Dark Pilgrim's best friend?
Actually, that is exactly what I wrote on here. Turns to Stun Master and is Dark Pilgrim's BFF. Especially with using Dark Pilgrim, because when he calls down the lightning, because of the enhancement that Dark Pilgrim provides, Call Lightning, he now throws 2 stun markers out and a fire 1 marker on it. Yeah, that sucked when I had to fight against that. That's the reason why I said he's basically Dark Pilgrim's BFF, because he just starts shooting lightning everywhere if he can do it. And next thing you know, your Dark Pilgrim's up to like rapid fire like 5 if things go right. So that's the reason why he made it into my number 2 spot for that one, which is kind of funny that you're like, oh, Dark Pilgrim's BFF written right here.
So the more stun tokens, the better. You know.
The next thing I listed as like a good, just as a kind of a nice benefit that I think, in my opinion, good ki feats, and he has the ability to really use them successfully. With Spirit 1, and if he needs to use Curse Fate, even on 2 ki models, they should be a little bit afraid, because if they have even an average roll and he does well on that Curse Fate roll, because he has Spirit and he can get access to that value of an 8, he can very quickly start shutting down a lot of models from like doing anything that would influence them to be like, oh, I need to engage this model to suck away activations or do something else. And if it's worth taking the risk of realistically losing the model, because the models won't even be able to defend themselves because all those face values are going to be 1 for that. And then Raijin's Rage, again, in coupling with using him, especially with Dark Pilgrim, that just having 2 stun markers is awesome on all your models, because they're pretty much either forced to use a wait action to get rid of all of those, and they'll still end up getting fire burned at least, or they're going to have to slog through the next 2 turns at being at -1 on their melee and range.
Yeah.
So it costs them a lot of ki to do it, but from now just kind of seeing the Tengu and just actually looking in for this episode, Tengu aren't necessarily worried about that, because kind of like Temple, they can really move their ki around and find creative ways of getting extra ki when they need it. And then can support your warband by making your enemies weaker. So basically, he kind of follows the ethos of Bushido, which is like, if I can't make my stuff better, I'm gonna make your stuff suck more, and then I'll do better fighting against it effectively.
One way of dealing with it.
Pretty much. And then the 2 downsides, he's a squishy sorcerer, just because he kind of follows in the same falls that Ryohobo can, where if you engage him, it's not going to look well unless you just have his poor dice like I did last week when I tried to kill him once I got to him. And he's not like an all-around supporter like Ryohobo would have. He can do it, but especially now with like the introduction of Dark Pilgrim, he is definitely serving the Dark Pilgrim in more ways than one, to really helping her out. And then the other ones, it's kind of like, I can help you out for an extent, but it's a support model, but not in the traditional sense, especially when I'm comparing them to like Harukichi and just a lot of the other Silver Moon models that I have access to for what support can really be done, and then some of the other Tengu models. He can support, but it's still not going to be like an all-around general support. He's got to do more to actually instigate the support, is the best way how I can describe it. But overall, with all of that, I'd still feel comfortable calling him a number 2 for my top 3.
I could see that. In general, I like any models that mess with everybody else, and Curse Fate is one of those that I respect. It costs a lot, but the effects that it could get if you pull that off are great. But again, opposed key feats when you're a 2-key model, even with Spirit does give you the +1. It still makes it somewhat of a dicey proposal, so not going to work great against Minimoto.
Oh, well, Minimoto is a whole other thing.
I understand. I'm just saying I don't mean to pull the corner the corner case factions figures and things like that. But again, the prevalence of I don't want to say the preponderance. Oh God, why I just gotta leave my English degree alone.
Yeah, please.
The fact that they have a lot of figures that have 2-key in the game and people are playing those more than the 1-key models makes these things a little less effective than I would like. Now, granted, if it gets really effective, like you were pointing out, you get a success level. Hell, if you even get just success level 3, that's four numbers you're blanking out, turning into ones, and it means you have 2 successful numbers. Because one is already out of the gate. One's already out of the gate, so you really only need success level 2 on this thing to really screw something. Hell, even success level 1 means you're blanking 2, so it's 50-50 if you're going to actually score a number or have it come up as a blank. And if you roll a 6, 5, and 4, I'll take those every day of the week. So best that they're going to do is 3 + 2. If they roll those right up. So, I like Curse Fate for that. It's just like I guess my thing is I have to keep it in perspective. Not everything has to work at its optimal best possible value. It could work at a success level 1 and still be good. It could work at a success level 2 and actually be overpowering because I'm blanking 3 numbers. So I guess I got to keep that in mind when I look at those like a Misao or a Curse Fate. It just sucks when it doesn't work in general.
Yeah, that's when I've used Curse Fate before, and it's like it doesn't work. Or again, it's very easily countered. Where if I'm fighting up against anything soulless, it's like, all right, crap. Well, that ability kind of goes by the wayside. At least though he does have Raijin's Rage, so he's got something to fall back on. Versus in the case like Misao, like we're just talking about, because that was fresh off the last podcast. Misao then becomes effectively a 12-point tactician model.
Yeah, that's true. Now, I will say with Curse Fate, the interesting thing is if you're going to be the active player when you're doing it. So if you get success level 0, you still get 1 number that you
do get 1 on there, so that's good to know.
It's success level +1.
Yeah, well, good to know. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're cursing something out, even unless if you just straight up fail.
Now you're going to do this against Mizuki and Ito? No.
I don't know. I would take. I mean,
you'll take your chances there.
If I was being bold just to make a statement, I would try it against Mizuki, and then when I failed, then I'd be like, all right, well, I learned my lesson.
But I mean, better than 50-50 though, isn't it?
Yeah, because she throws 3
She's 3, that's all.
So she'll win the tiebreaker. So if you get success level 0, she wins because you're only pitching 2 dice.
No, you're pitching 3 dice because he has Spirit 1, so it gives him it gives an extra die.
It gives an extra die, Spirit 1, or does it give a +1?
It's an extra die. That's the reason why I said you could get up to success level 8 with that, with the extra die.
Well, with 2 dice, you could just get to success level 8 when you hit the +1.
Yeah. It's willpower that gives you +1.
Okay.
So he gets the extra die. So no, he can actually go toe to toe with the 3 dice model. It's just
he's far more effective at it than Misao. Misao's got Spirit also.
Does she? I don't think she has Spirit.
He's going to have trouble with Master Ekisa and that
all the temples.
Kinshi dude.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That Kinshi dude. I don't want to talk about it. That's a bad word. Kinshi in general.
No, so Misao, just to clarify, Misao has willpower 1. She doesn't have Spirit 1. So it kind of evens out the same, but at the same time too, it's like I don't know. Pick your poison, I guess, because I guess I like Spirit more because it can help you on the resistance versus willpower. You only get to use it if you're active.
Spirit's much better. Spirit's a lot better because you're rolling it. Yeah, you get the extra die. And it helps in those tiebreakers then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like Senjokubo. How about you, Ben? What do you think about Senjokubo as a number 2?
He's great. For me, Raijin's Rage is why you take him, along with the Cool Lightning and obviously the unique effect. Curse Fate is something that I actually wouldn't use an awful lot, but that probably is just due to the way that I'm thinking about playing him. I don't own him yet. I do have Kukubo, and while you were talking, I wanted to see if you could get all 3 of the Karasu into a list with the Dark Pilgrim. I mean, if anyone charges you, it's a bad day, but
you can.
So yeah, it's fantastic. Raijin's Rage. I don't have much to add. He's really, really solid. He's in that sort of like 15, 16 rice, which is like quite busy.
I think that was a lot of the things I was looking at through Tengu. I'm like, damn, you guys got a lot of interesting models at 15, 16. I'm like, I'm slightly jealous, and I don't want to say it's Silver Moon like, but it's like, yeah, there's some pretty nasty stuff in there.
You are not allowed to be jealous. You are not allowed to be. If the 15 and 16, that's really awesome. No.
I have Geechee.
You got Wasapu at 11.
I know.
One of the downsides to him is not being able to go in any of the themes except for one. Again, White Mesa, I think, because of his melee, and he's got no move boost.
Yeah, that is something else that I was noticing a lot too. For some of these, it's just trying to work on themes, but also I was like, I'm going to worry about theme talks when we actually get to theme talks.
Well, okay, this is where Greg derails everything. So I don't disagree. It stinks that he can't be used in all but one theme, but. And I'll ask you two what you think. I'm thinking that the way the game has been leaning lately is you're seeing less use of theme and more going quote unquote themeless, but you're actually using like ordered for battle or something along those lines.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In which case, and again, a lot of the times it's to get some really kick-ass Ronin in there too. So Senjokubo, and I think we even said it right out of the get-go. He's Grey Pilgrim's, or not sorry, Grey Pilgrim, Dark Pilgrim's best friend. Dark Pilgrim isn't going in the theme list.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree on that one, and I know even me personally, until like I actually thought about it more. Most of the times, if I don't have a theme in a list, I a majority of the time play themeless. Don't even worry about the order for battle thing, especially at like the local games where I'll just be like, screw it, I'll just play what I have and I'll make it work.
Yeah.
What I found ordered for battle really useful for is a bunch of terrain options, a bunch of like niche events. So I mean, I actually didn't go ordered for battle. I've told myself I'm not allowed to go ordered for battle for a while now, because it seemed like a bit of a crutch for me, mostly because I didn't have to make any really tough decisions until I hit the table. But in that last tournament, I took the Sun Goddess Shrine. So obviously it's more expensive than Rice Spell Barricades, and its placement isn't as versatile. But if you come up against anyone who's got anything soulless, they can't go within 2 inches of it. So that's a 6-inch circle that they can't touch on the board. Pretty funny when it works out, because you plonk that just in the middle of the board. Like, well, you got to go one way or the other.
Yep.
But if they haven't got any soulless and you're running order for battle, well, it just stays in the sideboard. It's just. I think that's the real strength of order for battle, is you can still write a pretty good list because of some of the just like base synergies, and then you just shore up your weaknesses game by game in a tournament.
Exactly. I mean, you could have your list, and again, order for battle, I always see it as being far more used. Are you going to use it in casual play? You could just use it just to fill it in, because you're not playing themeless. You're not necessarily going to be able to use it to full effect. But yeah, tournament play. I'll be honest. There are some themes that do really bring it. I'd say anything in the KKZ themes.
Yeah, they need to.
They
So,
need to.
yeah, that's like a really cool way to how they work. I mean,
Mhm.
like as Ito players, our themes are okay,
They're all right.
very, very mid. Like, I'm not particularly excited by any of them, but
No.
If you play like true Silver Moon, like not like this, oh, I'm playing Ronin and I'm playing it as Silver Moon. Some of the themes there, you can get away with it. I'm gonna pull that punch because I've always been like, that's the one thing that's always bugged me with like picking the Ronin themes. But I mean, there are some there that it's like you could. I mean, like I pointed out with Traveling Show, you could definitely go through an entire tournament, and I did do it for Adepticon, where you can play the theme and you do well. And then I know some of the Ryu ones, if you play Blood of the Dragon, that one can be a very interesting and very scary theme where it's just like, screw it, I'm gonna go right for this, and I got 5 badass samurai that got your name written all over it, buddy.
And then there's the other ones, you know. So, you know, I kind of look at it, and that's why I'll be honest. When they put the 2-player starter box out, they had the Kiyozomi and the Hizomi themes. I enjoyed those. I liked that it was different. Now, ask me how I feel when I'm playing against someone who's playing Kiyozumi and they win because they don't do a single objective in the game and they're just racking up the points on me, and it's like I'm a pinball machine. It's just like, well, what the hell? You know, but it's a whole different way of looking at it. And so I think from an outsider like me, and by outsider I mean someone who's not involved in the design process, because me and Jason do not do play testing or anything like that. There are people in our group who do, but we don't. When we see that, you know, when we see it, it's a lot of the stuff has been seeming to be developed for the competitive play. Now, again, not necessarily models being done, but in general, it feels that way, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just I'm looking for more beyond that, because you're going to do a bulk of your playing with your friends, with your mates, with whoever, at the local game store, at somebody's house. And I'm not gonna metagame them and have my order for battle and say, oh, well, you're gonna play that. Well, then I'm gonna switch that out. No.
See, I think I have mixed feelings there, because like, if they're taking a theme, you should take a theme. I think the trouble is, Order for Battle can feel very much like you get the opportunity to tailor, and
yes, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm kind of going towards.
And I think it has potential to be problematic in tournaments as well. I actually, because you just can write that good list and then just have a couple of options which will, you know, any bad matchups you get, you can sort of mitigate.
Yeah.
I think in hindsight, there's not really, I mean, I didn't make the decisions, but I think strategic deployment is a better theme doing the same sort of thing, because it's so much harsher in terms of your decisions. You go, oh, well, this is my thing. If I go up against loads of fear and soulless, so okay, but can it do Vim? Can it do zones? Or is the other one good at that? And you have to really think a lot harder about the choice you're constructing for yourself when you get to the board. So yeah, I've never played it because it sort of melts my brain a little bit.
Well, that, and there's a lot of organizing, because I think in strategic deployment you can't take the same unique models, which is that to me, like if it's like that, then that's cool. Order for Battle is kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna be able to take this awesome list and I gotta be able to flex a little bit, just because I feel like it, versus like, no, you can either take this list that does good in this or this list that does good in that, and you've made your decision and you have to build around that.
You're just picking one list or the other, and each one is gonna, you know, I'm building a list to do objectives, I'm building a list to do zones.
Go at it.
But I can't tailor it to say this is going to be good in zones unless I meet
so-and-so
X, you know, or maybe I build it to that, but it may not actually handle something else. So yeah, it's I kind of like that one better. Order for Battle is really, from a tournament standpoint, it's really, I hate to say it's the way to play. I'm hoping that now that Kiyozumi and Hozomi have been out, that we might see more of that. I'll be honest, when we play at the store, I've been tinkering a lot with Kiyozumi themes and and throwing Kenamina and swordsmanship in there, mainly because I got rickrolled hard the first time I played against it. My opponent just didn't have to do it well. they were banking on the fact because I was playing a Hizomi theme against them, so they had swordsmanship on Kanamino, which means, hey, you know what? Every time Koga fails, I get a scenario point, and every time Kanamino succeeds, I get a scenario point. And I know Greg's dice suck. With Koga alone, I think I gave them 3 or 4 victory points. Although the funny part of that is I think we had the Kiyazumi sword, which if the figure that's using it gets killed, you give victory points to that person, to your opponent. We actually exchanged the sword twice. He killed Koga, who had it, and then I killed somebody, and I can't pronounce the guy's name, so I just call him Papa Hizomi, the matriarch of the Hizomi family. Then he had it, and then he just went
and died,
ape shit, and killed everybody. I lost the game handily because I didn't score any points, and I think I scored like a handful of scenario points, and he had like triple what I had. But it was fun cutting everybody down because Koga died and everybody else, and so he went total ham on everybody, and it was a lot of laughs.
Oh yeah.
So I'm working towards that. Now, the flip side of that, will I ever play in a tournament? No, because I'm running them all. So the point is moot.
It's all good. Eventually you'll do it.
I'll go up to Madison and Art will run something and I'll be fine.
Oh, that's true. Or maybe I'll run a tournament and try to do it from time to time, let you actually play.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back on track. Greg,
you.
What is your number 2? We've given Ben plenty of time to think. Are you still thinking, Ben?
He's still thinking. He's waiting to see what I say next. All right, I'm going to blow everybody's mind with my number 2.
Bozembo.
Okay. Yeah, he's number 1, 2, and 3. No, number 2. He's been everybody's favorite dude in the tournaments lately. That would be Kimmik.
Oh wait, is that the dude who does like the teleporting thing?
Bing, 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 bing.
Oh,
Correct.
Damn.
Kimmik, number 2. He's great. I have a bullet point I have for him, and hey, oh yeah, I'm the one that's actually controlling the cards. So bullet points that I have for Kimmik. And he has to, of course, be all the way down here. He's great at moving friend and foe alike. So you want to reposition your figures around the board. This is the dude to do it.
And he has Spirit 1. What the hell? Just all of Tengu has Spirit in one way or another. More importantly,
his artwork, he's got the cool little beanie hat on. I mean, why would you not want to take that? He is designed for winter combat. I like that. That's a fashion statement. Nice trim beard. He's a good-looking dude. Second thing, he makes Hill Tribe warriors so much better, which we will talk about in his strengths. So before I get to that, let's talk about his card really quick. At 14 points, what he can do and the influence he has on the game is worth every penny. He's a tribesman. He's a Shishe. He's a single guy. So, ladies, if you're looking for a hill tribesman, he's your man. Melee pool of 3. He could boost that by spending 3 ki. Moves 4. Range pool 3. He has 2/8 for his ki, and he could boost his ki stat by spending 3 ki. He has a staff because he is not a fighter. He's a lover. It has reach. It has drag defense. It has melee strength of +0. Traits. He has armor 1, heal. Always nice. He is immune to bleed, fire, and poison. Well,
that's nice.
Want to make him immune to something else? Why not? Spirit 1. So he's gonna defend himself.
I love the idea of being immune to bleed.
I know.
Yeah,
he
goes,
he's got a box of Band-Aids. Done.
He oozes the universe out. So you just see that like cut design of like bleeding the universe out. That's all he does.
Maybe he's just an herbalist or something like that. And he's got a bunch of things to staunch the wound. I don't know. Key feats. He has 2. One which everybody knows, which we'll get to in a second. But the second one, Binding Roots, it's a X +1. Simple action, pulse 3-inch. Don't be in base to base with someone. Choose up to X enemy models within the pulse's area of effect. Each model becomes immobilized. The cost for this key feat is X +1. I think that's really good.
It's enough lockdown.
So weirdly, this is the key feat that I knew for him. I didn't really think about Voice of the Wind until I had a little chat with Mooters and I had that revelation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great feat.
It's so it's getting into my bullet points, but I'll be honest with you. The reason why I love it, Immobilize is great, especially in a game where you're trying to do scenario actions or hold zones. Not being able to move to them is gigantic, and the fact that he just does it. I'm gonna pick 3 models. No. Nobody gets a roll. Nobody does anything. You just don't.
And you don't target those enemy models. You just choose them. So if Ghost does his bullshit where he's like behind your line and he's got 3 activation tokens, you just go, what if you oh no, wait, is he intangible?
Huh, okay.
He can be.
He has to choose to
He has to choose it when he activates.
So if he doesn't want to go elsewhere and escape on the board, then technically you would be able to lock him down. So depending on when you get him, if he's going to do something, otherwise he's got to go elsewhere.
Okay.
I know. F that guy. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. Ghost. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
No problem. And then the feat of the hour currently in the tournament scene is Voice of the Wind, which now I'm got the song from Pocahontas from a Disney movie in my head. Which I won't sing because I really don't know the words. Voice of the Wind, 2-key, active, target 6, a target within 6 inches. Place target model within 1 inch of its current location. If the target model is an enemy, you must first succeed an opposed key test with the target model, which is great because you have 2-key and spirit. So awesome. We'll just shuffle things around there. And then he has a unique effect. He has Hill Tribe warriors within 6 inches of this model reduce the cost of their melee key boost by 1.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Well, as if he needed anything extra.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's a bit like Robo, to be honest. Like,
yeah.
Oh, really good model. What if I had this as well? Cool.
You know what? It's sometimes I'm wondering if there's thinking in there and they've done heavy night of drinking. It's like, I don't think we've put enough on him. Let's give him this kick-ass unique effect.
When this edition came out, there was a typo on the Hill Tribe Warriors, and they could boost their melee for 2.
Yeah.
So until that was errated, you were basically boosting Hill Tribe Warriors melee for 1. Which really you can only go up to 4, but
still.
It's all good. I got a bunch of berserk Hill Tribesmen that they're throwing a bunch of dice. Like, I don't care. Let's go.
But most of them have brutal anyway, so.
Oh, they were getting up to success level 10. That's pretty much what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty damn close.
So strengths of my good friend Kimmick, his feats, specifically Voice of the Wind. And again, I would argue that Binding Roots is still damn good. But Voice of the Wind, as we've now been shown by our good friend Joe, otherwise known as Mutaz, makes him thoroughly disgusting and lining some things up. So what is it great for? It is great to move friendly models around for surprise or setting up some Karu bomb by putting him into position or jockeying your enemies into position. All at the time, it's an active feat that I could use as often as I want to spam it as long as I have key.
Oh, okay.
And not lose an activation.
Yep.
So you can just go, you're going to move, and 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 oh, I'm out of key.
Oh, guess what?
It's not even that you just can do it 4 times, because if you take Ryohobo and like Nigaboo, you just keep hitting key.
Here, have some more key. Why don't you do that again? Bam, 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 bam. So if you were disgusted by the snare traps being spammed, watching somebody just all of a sudden go up the board, 3-4 inches at a pop, because
and probably going to have their back facing you just to line it up, depending on if you're moving.
Turn you this way, and now I'm going to move Bazembo here, so he doesn't move, and now he's going to shoot you.
This is what Colin did to me at the tournament. His first activation was Voice of the Wind 3 times on Bazembo, who then shot me at like medium range.
Probably.
But of course didn't count as having moved.
Right? Yeah. So that was fun.
Yeah. and of course that means he's getting something like a 65 mil place, because it's an inch plus his base.
Yep.
Yeah.
So for those of you playing Kenshi and deciding that you're going to take the ability to void out a card, this is the guy that you want to throw it on.
That will be
Get
good.
rid of that ability. That will help a lot.
So, Voice of the Wind is it's gross.
I think it's one of those things that like new guys again to Descension could look at it and go, because you're like, oh, it's a place of 1 inch.
Yeah,
well, that's not a lot. But it's like, yeah, but if you're placing someone who's 40 mil or even 50 mil, which is tough in Tengu, but yeah, and it's also people not understanding what a place is. It's not a move, and it has a whole bunch of things. It is its own section in the rulebook. People should look it up. But then, yeah, you can just keep doing it.
Yeah.
So
Let alone doing it against enemies.
I wonder though, with the new like ruling for immobilize, because it's a place, it's still he can actually be placed outside of it. Because it's not being moved outside of his activation, or do they clarify that an immovable model can't be placed? Because otherwise, that runs into that thing then, where it's like, oh well, immovable models now can be placed.
Oh, we'll have to take a peek on that one because I know that's a relatively new ruling that I think they're still hashing out a bit.
I'm just thinking
or at
of
least
it right
a billion
now.
questions are coming up about it.
Yeah.
Because
if you're not changing your positioning, like when you like the idle slip, then I mean, like some immovable models are help protected against this to an extent because they can't be dragged in. But
yeah,
I think that I'd have to double check with that, or they probably talked about it. But it's just a question just worth putting out there right now.
Yeah. So voice the win again, and Ben is right. For new players, that's probably something that's really easily overlooked. So definitely him alone, just for that.
You hear it a lot with Descension. People really struggle early on, but I think it's because they just don't understand how important maneuverability is. I mean, that game against Colin, against Bazembo with Kimmich, I basically won that game because of my maneuvering with Ito. Because he didn't have a lot of maneuverability, considering it was a Descension list. But, yeah.
So his second key feat is also something, for veteran players, I still think Binding Roots is really good. New players will probably find some uses for it. So both key feats are extremely effective and, in general, not that expensive. I mean, if I want to immobilize one model, it just costs me 2 key. If I want to immobilize 3 models, it's going to cost me 4. But immobilizing 3 models in what could possibly be a 6-model list, 50% of that list is down. Now, granted, they have to be within 3 inches, but damn. I don't have to target it. I don't have to make a roll. I'll just put them in a spot, lock them down. Everybody else comes in to finish them off, or they just don't get to score that turn because they can't move into a zone. They can't move to get to a scenario objective to flip it, or they're spending the one thing, if they have a way to get out of it, they may still have to spend an action to do it, and then they still have to move into the objective and then flip it. So just, I find it's fine. It's very useful, I guess is what it is. And then the unique effect is just gross. Hill Tribe Warriors already hit like a ton of bricks. Most of them have brutal. Yeah, most of them have 2 in their melee pool. But
the 2 generics, which cost what, 8 rice?
8 rice, yeah.
And
then they're the ones that they cost 3 to boost now because they fixed that. But 2 to be able to get to 3 real easy, and brutal 1. That's nothing to sneeze at. So that's really good. So I like it. It just makes them that much more effective. And then it makes the leaders who have 3 and 4, and they're still Hill Tribes Warriors, they're going to hit that much harder. So in general, I love him. And I'll be honest, what's the last one? Oh, and he can heal. Because,
why not?
It's heal 1, but
it's still a heal. There's some things where like I would kill for like a couple more models that could heal, and I mean we've already gone through I think like 3 or 4 models in our top 3s that have access to some form of a heal.
It's not bad to have heal. That's the one thing. Now that I'm kind of looking at it, I'm thinking about it. Wow, you know what? Descension has an awful lot of heal in there.
It effectively makes them more resilient than Ito, because Ito have basically no.
It's that poison, man. That poison's like a nasty drug. Makes the bones thin. The Tengu were like, we already know we have like hollow bones, so we'll actually practice the art of healing.
We'll do that. So yeah. So for all those strengths, those are all the strengths that I like about him. He's just really good. Weaknesses, I had to really dredge up something there, and it's not going to be a big surprise. He's a key hog. You're going to want him. You want him to do, if you want to move somebody, 6 inches across the board over 2 activations, because you're going to burn through your key the first time, depending on who's going to do the activating. It's going to cost you a lot of key to do it. It's 2 a pop just to move 1 inch plus, because you had the base size on it. But man, So he needs it. So you're going to be chucking a lot of ki into him, which also means that if your opponent is smart, they're going to try to kill him as fast as possible. So that way you're not pulling your shenanigans all over the place. So
And he's fairly, and
he
just
can
given
hold
his ability,
himself
he
kind of
can
in a
hold
fight.
himself, but he does leave himself semi-exposed just a little bit because he does. I mean, 6 inches isn't like extreme far range, but it's still close enough where it's like it could be the danger zone for some models where it's like they could get off to the side and take him out.
Realistically, you're probably going to do it. You're probably going to move a model twice, and that should get him in a position. Maybe 3 if you have an extreme thing. And again, when you're adding in that base size to it, I think even a 30 mil base is 1 inch, right? So that, or close to it.
It's about
25 mil is an inch, so
it's a little more. So you're getting an inch plus when you're every time you're doing it. So you're really leapfrogging that guy pretty far, just by doing it twice. So yeah, for all those things, I like him, and I think the spotlight is on him more squarely due to recent tournament results and people talking about what he can do. He's one of those that probably was flying under everybody's radar up until recently. So
I mean, I think if I've got downsides for him, it really is Voice of the Wind, and obviously that's because it's so good. It means his other feat doesn't get a look in because he plays into a very not necessarily just like Alpha Strike style, but all your eggs in one basket. You're doing that one thing, and that's why he sort of ends up being on the tabletop at the moment competitively. It's just Voice of the Wind. That's why he's there. And for me, that's a bit of a bummer. Like his Binding Roots is a great key feat, but you're never going to use it.
No.
And it also means that because, like you say, he's key hungry, he's not often going to be in a hill tribe oriented list.
Yeah, that's true.
He's going to have a couple of people to channel into him, and then whoever he wants to launch across the board. I mean, that might be Knut because that guy can hit people, but I just feel like that is so exploitable that it kind of removes all the design from everywhere else on his card. You know, I'd like to see it turn or once per activation would be fine.
Once per activation, I think would be good. I'm sure they're looking at it
for activation, but your opponent gets a response each time, effectively.
Yeah, that, or I mean, do what they do like with Heed My Word. Even though I think that would be maybe a bit much, you just turn it into a simple action because Heed My Word can be really nasty too. I mean, it would just take quite a bit of the punch out of it. So if you do it, once per turn, but or if you make it a simple, that's something to rein it in.
Yeah, simple action I think would really hamstring it quite a bit. Just because it's so useful, because you could use it multiple times, multiple activations, I should say. But if I use it as simple actions, I'm doing it twice, and I can't follow up the use of it as soon as I do it. So
I know, but it doesn't make it as much of an or like an automatic because again, he has spirit, so he's even on the tiebreakers, he's generally winning. So
well, again,
to rein it in a little bit, especially if people want to, again, and it's more of the discussion of spammable abilities.
I think while I'm worried about it, in a very specific situation, you're using it against your enemies in a couple specific situations. If you're using it in terms of a Karu bomb, you're kind of gathering people up into a spot. So that way Karu comes in and drops in the middle and goes, ha-ha, and spins his sword around his head and chops everybody else's off. Hopefully not his. No, they fixed that. I think it's more that it gets used, and I could be wrong, Voice of the Wind, to move your own guys into position to do something, and then maybe flip somebody from behind, turn somebody behind, so that way you get the bonus on it. And if it's being used in that, so the opposed key test is kind of the check against it. Now, granted, he's probably going to win most of those, but dice being dice, if it's up to me, your odds are pretty good that if I'm rolling Kimmich, you're going to get what would normally be a 70% chance that Kimmich succeeds drops about a 25 if I'm rolling those dice. So, you still have to do something to do it. Whereas I want to be able to have the utility of move somebody and then have that figure that I move be able to activate after that. And so by making it a simple action, I think you lose that utility to it. It's
It's a balancing game.
and this is why I don't play test. So so that's my number 2. That's Kimmich. And I think everybody's kind of had their feelings and whatnot on that. So Ben, we've given you time. What's your number 2?
Oshibe.
Okay, I don't know if I remember that name when I was looking through stuff.
It's the female Suzumi with the prayer beads.
Shiba?
Oh, Oshibe.
Oh, duh. Okay.
Sabo's interesting, but
Shiba? Which one is she?
What letter does that start with?
Yeah, which?
oh,
There we
go.
go.
Oshibe.
Oh,
Yeah.
There we go.
There she is.
So she's Bushi and Suzumi, 13 rice, 3 melee boost for 3, 2 ranged, 5 move boost for 2, 1 key 6, 5 wounds, +1 on her katana, push defense 0, sidestep defense 1, cloud walk, coordinated attack Suzumi, dodge 1, 2 key feats, dart, which I'll come back to. Firm resolve is a 1 key feat, 1 key instant key feat, pulse 6 inches once per turn. When a friendly Suzumi model in the pulse fails a fear test, it gains steadfast until the end of the current activation. That's essentially shoring up some of the weakness that the Suzumi models have against fear. I haven't found myself using it, to be perfectly honest. But it's good if you really do want to get in on a model. Like, so does Bazembo cause fear?
Yes.
No.
Yes, Fear 5.
Yeah. So if you were playing against Descension, for instance, you just really wanted to get in on that guy and stop him shooting anyone, then there's a good reason to use it. You've got to be a bit close to do it, but whatever, you can do it on yourself. Her unique effects, she has prayer beads, so she gains an additional key token each starting phase, which is
awesome.
an interesting thing because, I mean, Suzumi at 13 rice, they're not going to have 2 key. So it gives her the currency without the, the fear resilience and so on.
Which, I mean, that's nice, actually, just to have that extra key.
Yeah, really good. So before we get to Dart, which is the thing which makes her incredible, she's a solid Suzumi fighter with a 3 melee skill, and that +1 on the katana is real nice. The move means she can get you, she can boost to get you. Again, she can do that every turn if she's not spending it on anything else. Cloud Walkers, they all have. The dodge is great. Zenkubo also has dodge, and it makes them so much more survivable. And then that coordinated attack, I really like swarming people with sparrows. I still haven't actually bought all the models to do that list. I've done it with proxies before. Ages ago, Robot Dice Explosion did an episode about it. But I really like the coordinated attack thing for them. So she's a solid fighter, no armor, which is a bit of a shame, but dodge makes up for that a little bit. If you can get a virtue on her that gives her parry, then she's quite frustrating. But the reason why she's up at number 2 is her once per game key feat, Dart, 3 key, instant, personal, move this model, its move statistic in inches. So it's the fact it's an instant that makes it need to be once per game, because you can use it defensively as well as aggressively. So someone moves towards you, it's better than an auto mirage. You just like, well, no, I'm going to move away. So someone declares that they're going to melee you. Well, before they do anything, you just move. Equally, if you could let them move into base with you and then just move, because that instant would kick off in a certain spot of the melee exchange thing. I'm not going to look at it. So yeah, you could do it at all sorts of really, really irritative times.
Mhm.
Actually, I am going to look it up because I think you can do it after people just
You can do it
figure
after.
out success level, can't you?
I think you could actually do it once if you had another model engage in a melee, before the dice are rolled, because it's a
Well,
move, you should be able to. You could just charge her. You could basically just advance her in and have someone there and get that outnumbered and any coordinated help right there.
Yeah, so
Well-
you could
Because
do
it's the
the
same.
itchy thing. Yeah.
yeah, or you could do. I think you're able to do the okay. So I do a melee action into somebody, so I'm the active model. I hit. No, you'd have to do that before damage rolls.
So
So I'd have to
it
leave.
can happen at step 11 in
Yeah.
the window that strong
So before
would
they
be
hit you.
used. In was
Mhm.
it? What's that? What's the key feat that gives you strong? But you can
Mighty Blow.
Mighty blow. Yeah.
I was thinking last blood bar. No, it's so you can do it then. So someone gets a good success level against you. Just go. What if I just wasn't in base contact when you roll the damage roll? So they don't roll the damage roll. You can use it to get into a zone that you really need to get to. She's a great Vim. Just it's just bonkers. It's really good. And the difficulty with it is the once per game you're
When
at
to
risk
use
of
it.
not using it when you should because you're worried about not having it anymore.
Right.
But equally, I've used it in situations where it's like I need to not get hit here, and then later being like, oh god, I could win the game if I could just move her closer to their deployment zone and reveal the Vim. But then, if I was dead, I wouldn't be able to do that. So, you know.
Chicken. What came first, chicken or the egg? Basically, at that point.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know.
We're talking about sparrow or the
Yeah.
egg. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tough. It can be a tough decision when to use it, but it's a game winner,
Yeah.
or at least a VP winner, I suppose. Yeah.
And move being what move is, because it's not a walk action. You know, I could move out of base to base with someone. I could move
Yeah.
into base to base with someone.
Yeah.
Not that she's going to do that often, but you
I
never
mean,
know when the need
as
when the need
Jason said,
arrives.
like if you want that outnumbering, if Sabo or Shubo or Hombo, all of that lot who have got the coordinated attack are in there, and someone's moved in on them, you can go, well, how about I give you +1 to your release skill, and you're outnumbered as well. Bummer.
Yeah. Or want
Yeah.
to stop somebody from doing a key feat that's base to base. Run. I'll do my instant on the end and then move into you.
Yeah, so it's pretty sweet, and then just everything else that you described with her, she's kind of like a sneaker right in there, just for kind of one of those hidden gems. Definitely, I think I think it's like you said, takes a little bit of finesse to figure it out, but once you get her down, depending on what list you throw her into, yeah, she can do a lot. She's a really good utility piece.
She's a solid profile, and then you've got Dart. So once per game, she's amazing. As far as like downsides go, she's not got armor. She's a bit squishy, and she doesn't really do anything other than Dart, other than just be, fairly mediocre combat model.
She's a great cheerleader. Hey guys, don't be afraid. You can do this. Yay.
She leads. She's in charge. Yeah, no, I really like her. Yeah.
I like her. I like the idea of her. I think, and this is just me, from my play style, I'm a very direct person, and this takes a lot more thought than I'm good at. So I guess that's what it boils down to. I would be crippled every turn in trying to figure out, should I use Dart now? No. Yes. No. Maybe.
Well, then if it's Descension, you add all your start phase special cards where like, oh, you can place this model within an inch. You could place all these models within an inch once per game. I love that shit. I need to play it again. I'm getting excited just talking about it.
Good.
The trouble is, it does melt my brain. That second game against Colin in the recent tournament where I won it basically through the maneuvering, my brain didn't work for the third game. Like, I don't know if you've listened to the podcast, but I just basically went, would you like to kill this model? Because I don't know what's going on. So yeah,
it is a lot of mental fatigue sometimes, especially if you go
three
past
games
3 rounds. Yeah. That is rough. That is rough. All right, so that is our number. So that's everybody's number 2. So I was just about to say that's everybody's number 3s.
Oh, she goes in every theme as well, I think.
That's even better.
That's nice.
The utility then is very good. All right, so that brings us to our number 1, which on occasion number 1s usually go quick because we've already talked about some figures already. So let's find out what Jason's number 1 is, and that'll also give you time, Ben, to think about your number.
Oh, I've got it. Don't worry.
Okay, you got
He's
that.
already got that. That was that. He had that easy. He's like, "This is what my number 1 is." He already knew that.
Oh no, what's going to be an honourable mention, but it's changed.
Oh, okay. So my number 1 actually hasn't been talked about, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm literally swinging for the fences on this one because I just thought this model was kind of cool and just the idea. My number 1 is Canute.
Canute, A? I don't know why
You
I just said
absolutely
that.
positively have to cleave someone from head to toe.
You want him dead.
It's a big axe.
I just looked at him. I mean, like, I could have taken Hakobo or Buzembo, or there's a couple others, but then I don't know, something about Canute and just being big burly tribesman that's just walking around the model also looks really cool. And I was like, yeah, he's my number 1, and he matches up well to well enough for me to argue that I could say he's my number 1.
He's a great model. Like, we'll get into it, but
yeah. And that's what one of the guys who I met at the store when I was talking with my top 3 with them on Wednesday, he's like, no, you're totally justified in this saying that he's your number 1. It's like, oh damn, well, I got lucky on that one because I don't think I've played against Tengu, and it's been a solid. I can only count like a handful of times I played against Tengu, and I haven't played against Canute, but I was just like, he seems like I would enjoy playing this model if I played Tengu.
Yeah.
So Canute, he is a tribesman. Simple, no multiple keywords. He's probably the leader of the tribesmen too, I would think. 21 race, so he's kind of pricey, but he is throwing 4 melee dice and boost to 3, super awesome. 2 melee dice on range, that's not boostable. He's only speed 4, so he is slow compared to all other Tengu.
Well, he's not a Tengu.
I know. Well, there's that too. And his key statistic is 2/6, so generate 2 a turn, hold up to 6. He wields the Great Axe, not the good axe, the Great Axe at +2 at strength +2, brutal 1, powerful attack at 1, and force back attack 1. Awesome. He then also, being an awesome tribesman, carries 2 throwing axes. For
when
ammo,
one axe can't do it, you have to have 2 or 3 other axes.
Pretty much, but he has ammo 2, so he gets 2 throws with the axes. They're brutal 1 on the damn axes, so that right there was already like, this definitely makes me feel justified in taking him. And they're lightweight, so that's even better. So I don't even feel bad that he's dice range 2 because he's got 2 axes to throw, and I'm thinking like larger axes, but maybe they're like the smaller ones that you do at axe throwing. He just whips them really fucking hard.
Yes.
Then his other statistics or other abilities, armor 1, bravery, leadership to tribesmen, 1/6, so that's pretty good. Spirit 1, more spirit popping up with the tribesmen here too. And tough 1, which I'm always a big fan of tough. He has inspiration and tenacious. Inspiration, 2 key, active, target 6, target friendly model with rice cost of less than this model gains +1 to melee pool or range pool. Surprise, there's not a handful of models in Tengu that cost more than him, especially tribesmen.
Yeah.
And then tenacious, this model gains tough +1. Congratulations, I just went to tough 2 on this model, and he's got
or
6
more.
ones. Oh yeah.
Oh no, it's only once per turn. Never mind.
Plus for that. And then his only special unique effect is he can only target the inspiration with the other tribesmen. So congratulations, all your tribesmen are fighting better, whether it's basic dudes, Chemic for one weird ass reason, or there's a bunch of other tribesmen that are in Tengu that's like, yeah, they're gonna fight just as good as Canute can.
Yeah.
So some reasons why I took him. Option number 1, which is kind of just what I like. Burly Barbarian, who's a solid finisher, and he does offer some support. He reminds me an awful lot of Oda and Tantalo, which is, I think, part of the reason also why I definitely like this guy. Just for inspiration, and again, he just has awesome hitting power. If he can get to he can be strength +5 if he decides to sacrifice a die and go with powerful attack. And you probably take Chemic with him if you feel like that. Oh darn, I boost it too. So yeah, that just gets a whole lot more justifiable. Option 2, solid melee with a potential.
Oh, sorry. Did you just say that he would get the boost at 2?
Oh, does he
Or,
not? Does he
like,
not?
can
So
it
he
really
can. So he
called
can boost. So with Kimic's
not a
ability, it
hill tribe
reduces
warrior?
the boost, or does it not work like that?
Only for hill tribe
Only
warriors.
hill tribe warriors. He's just
Oh,
tribesman.
sorry, I misread that. Okay, so he's still boosting at 3, still reasonable. Sorry, I got that mixed up. I thought it was all tribesmen. I must have misheard when you were talking about the old
No,
version of the card.
it's you heard the tribesman part, not the hill tribesman.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
it's literally just those 2 non-unique models, I believe. Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, well, it's okay. I'm still learning these guys, so I mean,
That's all right.
nothing gained, nothing lost at this point. But that would have been really fucking awesome if that was the case, which is probably why they fixed it. So let's see. So solid melee stat, and again, that range just having brutal 1 on there. So even if he's throwing 2 dice, but with lightweight and brutal 1, I'm gonna chalk it up that he can hit just as well at range like any range 3 or 3 die model at range. So if not, his main forte is melee anyways, and he, in my opinion, succeeds in spades in that regard. If you fight this guy, you gotta think about this twice.
Yeah.
And then in general, when I looked at the model and everything, he just looks really cool. That also really helped my decision in this guy. So those are pretty much what I had to say about Canute. As far as kind of some downsides to him, he'll do better in like the tribesman theme versus like Tengu. So not a lot of cross pollination unless you want to try something weird with him because he just has a lot more synergy with the tribesman. So I can't see a lot, and this is coming from a Silver Moon player where I try to cross pollinate my guys, and it looks so cool on paper every time. Be like, I got my Butos, and I got a Rose, and I got this and that. It's like I'm gonna do all these awesome things all at once, and it just doesn't work. I'm like, why? Why did this not work?
The difficulty is because of those synergies, because of his cost, you're going to struggle to get enough like Tengu tricky people in for it to all sort of balance out, I think. But
that too, and that's kind of the same thing that I've noticed like with my roses. It's like there's some situations where I can make it work, but at this point I just kind of keep things separated, and unless if I'm doing something weird, or I'm just like, I don't care, I just want to try this because I just had an idea one day and I was like, I'm gonna try it. Or usually when I show up in the game, so I'm like, I'm gonna try this and just see how it works out. And then find out that it does work out pretty well. And then I have much slower in quotation mark compared to the faction, but I think that's pretty much all the tribesmen. They're speed 4, but also going up against an all Tengu force with Dark Pilgrim where they had Cloud Walk, yeah, they're going to be slower comparatively. But I mean, again, that was more grasping for straws at them. But I mean, it's just something just to be aware of if you're going to try to be like, I'm going to play more tribesmen than versus the actual Tengu.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty much contrary to the. If you look at the faction, what you call the faction identity for the Descension would be maneuverability, Cloud Walk, move 5, maybe even boost movement, and none of the tribesmen do that. But then you've got Kimmy, who can help you do some of that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also you can get a couple of special cards, I think, which can give Cloud Walk. Or one can give Cloud Walk.
Yeah, I know that Vial of Rajan's Breath can give him Cloud Walk, so if you need it, but it's only one model. But beyond that, I wasn't seeing too many things to help with the maneuverability part of it. But again, at that point, then he's just standard move for all of Bushido. But when you compare it to what the rest of the profile identity is for Tengu, he's basically like he's basically a snail in a faction of Ferraris. That's the best way that I
would describe it. But then tough 1, being able to get tough 2, he's got the arm. It's just, yeah, it's interesting that they're resilient in that way that Descension just generally consider to be.
Yeah, you could. So you get the Suzumi Feather Cloak for tribe, and it's requirement tribesman, which gives a vault to active personal. They gain Cloud Walk until the end phase.
Oh, okay.
So that's actually pretty sweet.
That's not too bad then. So, I mean, that's my number 1. Like I said, I think just overall, just a really cool guy. He's probably, I'm glad to hear, at least get consensus from the group that it's like, no, you picked a reasonable number 1 versus like, Jason, do we have a talk about like, did you fry your brain thinking of number 2 and number 3 at this point?
No, he's really good. I'm glad that you picked him because I think people would find it too easy to pick Zembo or, you know.
Well, I haven't seen his name come up a whole lot. So like when I found this guy, I was like, why do I not see this guy like come up more often? I mean, like he's not like overbearing, but I mean, like he's still pretty kick ass.
I think the problem is you go with Descension because you like bird people.
That's true.
And the tribesmen, their problem is that they're just a bit vanilla.
They're not bird people.
I guess. like I love vanilla, but like they yeah,
They're very straightforward.
Nothing is wrong with vanilla.
That's the thing. I want to run a tribesman list, and there'll be a good reason to do that when the next cycle deck comes out. But until then, yeah, I think it's yeah, I find it difficult to justify them because I just love the maneuverability.
Well, good. With the new
Talk to
cycle,
Grandmaster Cody. He has his what he calls his. And we had a battle report of it ages ago.
the cave Tengu.
Cave Tengu. It's the Cave Tengu episode, yes, where he schools me with tribesmen. So yeah, it's doable and frighteningly effective. Again, this would probably appeal to me, playing more tribesmen than Descension than Tengu, I should say, because again, I don't want to say it doesn't take a lot of thought because it's still going to take a lot of thought, but you know what you're trying to do. You're going to get your objectives, whatnot, but really you're there to smash face.
Yep.
And
they can do quite well supported by models like Rehobo. I mean, again, like that 8 rice to get that channel in can be really good for the tribesmen.
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Jason. I could see it being, seeing it as a number one because when you look at efficient killers in that list, he's pretty efficient at what he does. He just, inspiration is only going to help tribesmen, and tenacious is going to help him. Armor 1, tough to 2. That's pretty darn good. I mean, he's going to shrug off until the end phase. I forget that means he should be able to hold on to it when he's trying to get rid of like bleed and
so
fire would be the exception.
All of that stuff too. So the only thing that's going to wound him is fire 2, or you basically got to start getting like the level 3s of all those status.
Level 3 poison or level 3 bleed, which I don't think there's a level 3 bleed out there yet.
There is. It's the new Blood Moon Ninja that came out. He has like slice, but you have to get the surprise to get it to go off.
Yeah.
So it takes a bit to
Stupid
do it.
ninjas.
I think he's just like a classic Bushido lead from the front combat model. I mean, he's almost a samurai esque model. Like you see prefecture models that do this sort of thing, and even so, like Minato, the pirate captain, like has that sort of feel to him as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's punchy. He's all offense. Granted, tenacious is defensive in nature to reduce the damage, but you're almost throwing that on them because you're going to try to pitch as many dice as possible into taking that model out in one blow.
Yeah.
So you're throwing a lot of dice in there. He's a model because I could be tough 2 and have armor 1 that I wouldn't mind having berserk or aggressive on. I don't know. Which you can't get if you take there's things in there that you could take.
Rage.
Yes. Primitive Rage. All right. So that is Jason's number 1. My number 1 will be super quick. Because if we go back however long we've been talking, I said Torobo's somewhere in my list. And hey, Torobo's my number 1.
Okay.
I'll just put the card up, but I'm not going to go over it just so that way people can see it as I'm blathering on as to why I think Torobo should be number 1.
I'm not going to lie. I mean, this has been pretty good. I mean, through the whole podcast, it's taken us to this point to actually get a duplicate for someone, and it's in a reasonable different spot. Sometimes, like Greg has mentioned, we'll sometimes hit it where it's like number 1, like, yeah, this person talked about it here, or in the Silver Moon episode, yeah, we're all in agreement, like, yeah, this is Harukichi's the number 1. Just we don't need to argue about it.
Yeah, we didn't argue about that. Just because
Torobo was in there for me, but when you brought him out as your number 3, I dropped him. So,
there we go.
Mention that's fine.
That's all right.
Hey, I mean, as long as you're enjoying doing this, I think it's always a fun format for a lot of people to do and listen to.
So, Torobo, number 1. What do I say about him? He's a fast range threat. Emphasis on fast. Great objective hunter.
Yeah.
Last bullet point I have for him: pain in the ass.
Yeah. If you, just a note on that to learn from my experience last game. If you have him in melee and it's the first thing you do, make sure you kill the damn thing, because otherwise he just dashes away because you forgot that that's what dash actually does and it wasn't a different key ability. And that's how you get screwed because he's got cloud walk. So his ass is going approximately 7 inches away from wherever the hell he was, or further if he decides to run.
Yep. So strengths of Torobo, real quick. Again, we've kind of talked over his cards. You know all of his fun stuff. Athleticism, dash. He's flank, scout, cloud walk, all that good stuff. Camouflage 6. So his strengths, the big strength that jumps out at me first and foremost is his unique effect, the handing out of a stun marker to an enemy within 8 inches. No roll. It's just awesome, period. Really helps to set up the takedown of an enemy, whether not necessarily by Tarobo, but by someone else. Just by weakening your foe, you're getting that much better. If you are playing with a figure, let's say, that really feeds on having stun markers out, aka a certain pilgrim who's dark, it also is very helpful that you're just pitching it out. And again, it's not opposed. I don't have to roll the hit. I don't have to roll the damage. I just say, you're stunned.
Yep.
Enough said. So just that alone makes him, just puts him in a different tier. I should say different tier. It really makes him a very, very solid choice in general, and just does a lot for you. His speed and his feats is the second thing that really jumps out at me as a strength. I mean, he's speed 5. He could boost it up if he wants. He has Cloud Walk. He has Scout 1. So if I actually start him on the board, I'm moving that 1+ inch, so I'm almost 2 inches up the board, and 5. So in theory, I'm like effectively 7 inches, and that's not even running. So that's just great. That helps him get to where he wants, or I could flank him, save him for later, and then having that fast of a model come in, maybe turn 2, maybe turn 3 backline. He could hold his own against a lot of backline support models and hurt things, or he'll just sit in the backline and shoot things in the back because he's coming in at that time, or he's just scoring on backline objectives, which he does really, really good. Dash and athleticism also make him, I would think, a fairly decent VIM target or VIM
Model.
Selection.
Yeah.
He's going to be hard to pin down. You engage him, and let's say for some reason he gets there, he'll just dash, and I'm going to walk away if he lives. But he's going to throw everything in defense. So yeah, and you can't surprise him because he's aware.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
So yeah, he's really good. And then the last one, which was this one's a little bit of a tricky one, is the Camouflage 6. So if you're playing with him early in the game, or if you flank him turn 2 or whatever, 6 inches is an awful lot of space. You should be able to do something, but you're not going to be picked off early game if you hold him to be the last figure. He's on that line, or he's a couple inches up. Most things are not going to be starting their activation at 6, within 6 of him. So they're not going to be shooting him. They're not going to do an opposed key feed on him. They're not going to be able to charge. That means even if you have a flying Hagane coming aboard or over the board, they're not able to charge him on turn 1 because he's Camouflage 6. Now, if for some reason Hagane gets within 6, then yeah, he's going to charge. But she can't do it from the back line turn 1. Which is, everybody's I'm afraid of that. Which, yeah, they should.
There's nobody can shoot him there.
There's that. But Zembo can, but we won't talk about that. So all those strengths make him just, I feel, to be in a faction that's really agile, makes him really very agile, and in a game that relies on you scoring points or scoring objectives. He does it probably the best of anybody in this faction. Mm-hmm. So that's why I have him as number 1, because when you get down to it, and I always have to remind myself of this, the name of the game isn't eliminating models. The name of the game is scoring scenario points and victory points, and he does it well. So that's why I have him for number 1. He does have weaknesses. I mean, and I kind of put this in terms of melee and range. He has the flexibility to do both, but he's not stellar at either. And then I had one that it just had come to me, and now it's totally gone because I'm talking. But in general, he's it's hard to find something that he's just really good. I like him. I just have to think when I use him, and that's not one of my strong suits. So it's not a oh, I know what it is. It's so his other weakness, and again, I was just about to say, any weaknesses that this model have is not a weakness in the model itself. It's more the weakness in the player. So for me, I find it difficult to use him effectively. That's just me. The other part of his weakness is remembering his shit.
That's true,
Remember
actually.
that he could put a stun marker out at the starting phase. I know that our players forget that constantly. So again, it's not a failing of the model, it's a failing of the player. Now, you want to rack that up as a weakness to the model, feel free. It's just something that you're going to have to drill into your head that these are the things that it does and not forget it. So that's why I put him as my number one. And I think we've all talked about him enough where I don't think we need to praise Torobo and make him our ultimate Tengu dude, which I'm sure there'd be other people to argue with, but he's good. All right. So, Ben, you get the ultimate number one position.
Yeah, so I've ended up. He was going to be an honourable mention, but I changed my mind. The floating theme himself, Naigabu.
Oh, that was my honorable mention.
Oh, actually, Nagabu. Yeah, Nagabu is my honorable mention also. I'm looking at my list right now.
Well, let's just roll it all
we
in.
just sped this one right up.
So yeah, I think I'm just going to.
Oh yeah!
Wow, that is a lot of text on that.
This is why no one can remember Tengu effects. They're basically like a Yu-Gi-Oh card. There's too much damn text on there, so you're not.
He's a bit like
you have the strong mental fortitude to remember all this crap. Good for you.
So the thing is, like, he doesn't fit in any of the Tengu themes, which is fine because his card. I mean, look at the size of that text.
Oh,
he is a theme. I'm stealing that from Mutas because he is a theme in himself. Yeah. So 15 rice, Tengu, Koroko, Shisai, 1 melee, 1 range, no movement, 3/10 key, boostable for 2. If you absolutely positively have to do something. He's unarmed, -2 damage, aware, channel 6 inches, cloud walk, durable at range, fearless, heal 3, leech 6/6, metal 1, slow, virtue 6 inches. I mean, there's a lot there already. Then we get into his key effects, key feats. Sorry. He's got Spirit Ward. It's 2 complex, 6-inch aura. Can't move. Doesn't matter. Can't be invested base. While within this aura, Kami and Asura models cannot move closer to this model. Pretty niche, but I guess he's a bit like a floating sun goddess shrine if you need him to be. Never used it. Warding Shomyo. 3 key complex aura, 6 inches, same restrictions. This model gains Disturb Flow 1, 6 inches, and enemy models within the aura cannot use special attacks or defenses. Really useful. Never used it.
I was going to say.
It costs 3 and it's complex. I mean, look, it's good. I can see it being really useful in a niche. Both of these key feats are niche so far. And then there's another niche one, Detect. 2 simple, pulse 6 inches, can't be in base to base. Choose a model in the pulse. That model loses camouflage until the end phase. Sure. Honestly, if someone's got camouflage and they're within 6 inches of Naigabu, I would generally be surprised, but you've got other ways of dealing with it. You can get 6 cents off of Ryohobo. You can just have Bizembo deal with that problem. So if I don't really use any of his key feats most of the time, what do I do? Well, I hand out virtue tokens, one every turn. You can either gain armor 2, you won't. Don't ever use that. You could gain move +1 and light-footed. Do use that. It's brilliant. Give it to him because then he can actually move. I mean, don't give it to him. It's a waste. But this model can also gain parry 1. Use that. Definitely use that. Don't use armor. Use the parry. This model gains range defense +1 until the current action is resolved. Also, use that. That's better than the armor. Statistically, it's like slightly better than the armor. I guess you might use the armor if you felt like taking a chance on not spending the virtue token and wanted to wait until step 11 before the damage roll so you know the success level. But I'd much rather just reduce the success level. So there you go. they're good virtues. The move and the parry and the range defense are all really useful, and you just have those sitting on the model. So you take the cards I mentioned earlier. So you've got 3 virtue tokens out when you deploy, and then he's putting them out every turn.
Yeah.
Fantastic. How does he move when he's got no movement? So during the starting phase, if he's not in base to base with an enemy model, you may place him within 3 inches of his current location and not in zone control of an enemy model. He's a 40 mil base with a 3-inch place. That's big. And then the first time in a turn when a model moves into base to base with this model, do it again. After
Nothing will drive your opponent more crazy than that.
Yeah, so we were talking earlier about the auto mirage essentially that Ashibe had. Well, this is what he's got. Someone can move into him a couple of times and then he's a bit buggered, but they're having to waste an activation making him run out of that movement. Honestly though, I use it the other way around most of the time, where I have a Suzume of some kind just move into base to base with him and give him a little push. Yeah, just a little push. And get him where I need him to be. Does mean that he's a little bit more vulnerable at that point, but it's never really been that much of a problem for me. So, honestly, he's got a lot of stuff going on. And slightly anticlimactically, he boils down to a great big floating key battery of doom. Would you like 6 key on whatever models you like within 6 inches? Yeah, right. I'll do that. It's pretty good. Also, the heal. The annoying thing with the heal, obviously, you move in the starting phase, but then if someone moves into you and goes, "Oh, could you heal me?" He goes, "I can, but now you've wasted my defensive move away. Yeah. I could place within 3 inches the other side of you or something, but thanks." So yeah, I mean that's basically what I've used him for, is just a floating key battery with heal and virtue. But like I say, I mean, yeah, he's 15 rice. That's a lot of key that you can put wherever you like, and he can move, he can channel 12 key a turn because you focus with him for his complex. Mm-hmm. Oh no, you can't. No, because you can only channel when you activate.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll shut up.
It's all good. It's a
small you could still do it with. You could still do 12. You just have to be leeching 9 of it. Which, yeah, I guess you could. Good. Yeah, I think he's fantastic for just enabling all the other stuff that you want to do. His virtues are really good defensively. And when you like to play as many Suzume as me, that's really handy. Mm-hmm. He can only hand virtue out to models, friendly models, and I'm pretty sure that the virtue effect has to be within line of sight, but he's aware, so cool. So yeah, it doesn't matter too much. So yeah, there you go. I actually built lists around Ryohobo, and then he became the linchpin of my Grandmasters list, which had problems, but he's just so good to float around handing key out to people, just being a big old enabler.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, he's good. I mean, I had him. He's the big owl, brings the support. That's what he does.
I called him my support master, and after playing against him on Wednesday, because pretty much just about everybody that we've talked about or touch base was in the list that I played against this week at the store. And I mean, they could basically have just taken off the figure at this point and just basically said, "New Tengu theme, get all this crap," and that would be Nagabu. I mean. So I mean, he does his job really well. If you can take, I mean, it's the same thing with him. You got to try to engage this guy as soon as you can, because if you can take him out, that really will cripple. That's almost like a death blow to a Tengu list if you can take this guy out. But
it's
the nice thing is
spirit block on him. Put spirit block on him.
Oh, that
Kinshi.
too.
Yeah, just
That can really just fuck off. It absolutely, like him against Kinshi was a real problem. I mean, I still won, but like
More difficult.
princesses with just as many activations as they like because of Nigaboo just destroying portals in turn one. Pretty handy. But yeah, he's great, but yeah, and he does feel like a bit of an anticlimax as a number one choice.
I mean, he supports like a huge role, and especially with the new list that kind of Moot has put out, and then a lot of people that's thinking inspiration from it. You kind of need this guy, or this is where a lot of those lists are starting from, because he's such a good battery, and but the battery side effect alone, he does a lot of crap. So it's kind of like it's very justifiable to put him as a number one when you look at everything as a whole versus like, oh, this cool kick-ass Hakobo samurai bird Tengu that slices everything down. I mean, like that could be
you're
an
going to need
option
some
too,
key
but
for that.
yeah, you're gonna need key for it, and
Yeah.
he facilitates everything so damn well fighting against him, like just seeing it firsthand.
He does facilitate all the broken shit that they can do at the moment.
Exactly.
That's what I was going to say.
Downside, I suppose. But
I was going to say a lot of the things, and again, not being as familiar with Descension as I should be, but when I look at them, there are some models that just their profile by themselves, take away the key feats and things like that, or maybe there's one specific key feat, but taking away that stuff, they operate fairly decently. Descension go to another level, or they really shine when they're using their key, and there's some figures that really need to have a lot of key to do that, and so that's the role that he fills. And on top of that, they also seem to do well. There's certain figures that offer some really good virtue effects, and he offers a bunch, and with those virtue effects, he makes them what some people would say is a very, I don't want to call them I don't know if Descension is necessarily glass cannon, but they're very they can be very fragile.
Yeah, I mean they're glass without the cannon.
Yeah,
the cannon is Bazembo.
Yeah, the cannon is Bazembo, and maybe Canute. For if you're looking for a melee, but
no one's mentioned what's his name?
Hokibo.
What? Yes, Hokibo.
That's what I had mentioned for a number one, because that was also a option that came up when I was looking at stuff, was Hokibo.
I mean, I looked at a bunch of them, and Nagabo was in there for me because we're gonna gloss right over our honorable mentions because everybody's had their honorable mentioned.
Everybody, yeah.
So I mean, Nagabo was definitely. It was rough for me to try to figure out where I wanted to put Nagabu in my list. Instead, I went with who I like as my general fighter figure, with Bazembo being more specialist in range, but he's a killer. I went with Kemek as my support for being able to move things around. Maybe it's because maybe he's the flavor of the month. I went with Torobo as my number one, as my most mobile point scorer, because again, in a game where you win by scoring points, he does it the best in the faction. Which meant, where do I put Nagabu? Nagabu is a support model, but way different from what Kemek is. They almost fill the same role, just different versions of it.
Well, again, Nagabu enables Kemek's bullshit.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
Anybody's bullshit.
And that's where I would, if you were arguing that, I would definitely say that Nagabu could go on that number 2 spot for Kemek stuff, because Kemek is key reliance, like we talked about. Nagabu 1, he just gives the key, and he can just facilitate all that movement of key and just channel it over without an issue.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not wrong saying that. And again, like on our last episode, we all listed Hadokichi as our number 1 for Silver Moon. Is he the best fighter and all that other stuff? No, but what he facilitates for the faction is broken, and has probably almost rightfully giving you almost a couple black eyes, but it hasn't gotten to that point yet. But Nagabu definitely deserves to fill that spot. And as we've had this conversation kind of going throughout the day, and looking back at my list when I made this from when we were going to schedule beforehand, there'd be some things where it's like, oh, okay, I'm seeing it in a different light. And also it helped that I played against it recently to kind of be like, yeah, there's definitely something here that Tengu, I think, are going to be the sleeping giant coming up here soon, and in some of the competitive scenes, just for some of the cool stuff you can do. It's just there is a chance to actually go and take them on toe to toe in some things, versus some of the other factions where it's like it can be a little bit more difficult and frustrating.
Hmm.
And I think Nagabu opens the door. Again, if none of the themes really appeal to you, or if you have a mix of figures that you can't put into any one theme altogether, Nagabu allows you to play quote unquote themeless and still be very, very effective.
Yeah, he's kind of like the super glue that holds the whole faction together.
Well, like we said, he's a theme in and of itself. So, you know. All right. So
Ben, what's your honorable mention? Because you already talked over our honorable mention.
I mean,
if you have Torobo.
I think, yeah, I mean, Torobo's in there, but I think if I want to get Itsube on the table, the Hayataki Guard captain, but I don't. I just like the sculpt, which obviously is like a bit of an egotistical thing to say, but like I was happy how that came out, and I'd like to get her on the board.
Okay, go for it. That's what this category was designed for. So that way it's like, you know what, this is a model that I just want to shine the spotlight on. It may not make sense in some things beyond like you just like it, but we are giving the platform to shine on these models for that reason.
I don't know what to say about her. Like she seems really cool. It's just that the problem with the Hayataki Guard, the problem with the Hayataki is
they're all medium bases, aren't they? So they're
medium
susceptible being shot to death. That was my first thing when I saw them.
Generally, you know, sort of 17, 18 rice. You've got what Jirobo is 15, so he's pretty affordable. It just, it's tough to find the argument for the Hayataki Guard at the moment.
I think that they're really close when I was looking through them, because I saw some of these guys like, oh, these guys are like really cool, and also they also all looked really cool model wise. But the big thing that caught me off was kind of medium too. They really want to coordinate and work together. What I was kind of getting with them, and they're really pricey. Where if one of them goes down, it's like this is not going to work out that well. And it's a cool house of card effect that you're trying to build. But if you lose one too quickly, which is very reasonable or very possible with these guys, then it doesn't work as effectively. And there's also a good amount of move shenanigans on there where if they're not necessarily, I would say, new player friendly, where it's like you're gonna slog through it a couple of times before you kind of get it to work, and it might not be consistent.
Well, and I mean, go ahead. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking to myself, he could be a good fighter, but he's almost encouraging defensive tactics, and from what I've learned in Bushido, you could play defensively, but that means it's going to be harder for you to get and score points unless you get there first, which is what Tengu does. Tengu get into a spot, and then this is something that you could build around to hold something. And the reason why I'm looking at it is I'm looking at defensive lines specifically. So, and maybe with a mix of our good friend we just talked about, Nagabu. So he gets into position, somebody else gets into position with him, they form that defensive line. So you throw that in there. Now, if somebody comes and attacks you, one, you're going to have reach, so yeah, I'm striking first. But importantly, I'm parry 1 naturally. Because I'm in defensive line, I'm parry +1. So now I'm parry 2. If I have the virtue token and Nagabu on the board, I'm parry +3.
Oh, is it?
No,
it's parry 1.
However, the regular Hayataki Guard, that his virtue could give them parry, and then they could give themselves +1, so they could become +2.
So they're all +2, which is still very solid.
Yeah,
adding 2 to your defense.
Oh, actually, no, that wouldn't work either. No. This feat does not stack itself. It does not stack with itself, but it does stack with so it would work. Sorry,
because I think there's another one of the Hayataki Guard that also have defensive line. So basically, you just couldn't stack each other. Be like the ultimate parry +5, and be like, yeah, you're not getting through this.
No, so no, that doesn't stack.
But at least you get the parry 2, which is very solid.
It's a good key feat. I mean, to the front is a good key feat, and Bushi models like Oshibe is a Bushi model. So yeah, I'm thinking about it, but the trouble is, in order to get enough models in there, I think I probably wouldn't take another Hayataki Guard. I'd probably just take her and then a bunch of Suzumi to work on that defensive line. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that.
It's
I
tough.
mean, like it's something to get the conversation out there, and who knows, someone who's actually listening to this would be like, "Oh, here's the idea that I came up with it." Which again, that's kind of the whole idea is like just to give people ideas and be like, "Oh, okay," as well as kind of helping newer players getting into a faction, be like, "Okay, this kind of seems cool. Let me see what ideas I could work around with this while they practice with like paper cutouts or whatever."
Yeah.
I mean, worth noting that they provide cover to friendly models as if they were terrain.
That's also super nice.
They have range defense 1, or at least she does. To the normal hierarchy guard? No.
No, I was like, I don't think.
So
I
just
think
that
she's
one.
the only one with it, but with the cover that she provides, then they
So
can.
that's
at
why you
least
put
get
her
it.
up front and everybody else is standing on the sides. Using
Little conga line.
Exactly. Which then lines up something to go through. Anyway, no. And no,
All right.
I'm trying not to discourage things. All
Final
right.
decision and ranking
There you go.
time, because
This
we've
is
got a
ranking
very
time.
wealth of models that we've picked.
And
So
variety, yeah.
yeah, I'm okay with probably submitting to the fact that I was probably wrong where Tarobo should have gone, and Tarobo is probably the number one in my opinion, especially barring people probably changing. So I'm as long as Tarobo's in there, but as far as the number one, I mean, I still have him as my top. I still have him as my number three, and he could have easily been my number two. So it's not going to take me much to like bump him to number one easily.
Yeah. I mean, if everybody's cool with Tarobo at number one, I'm fine. I wouldn't be adverse to dropping him down to number two.
I
A
just don't
lot of
know.
these
I don't-
positionings
Mhm.
just depend on your play style and what is more important. So, like for me, if I want to kill things at range, Bazembo goes up to number one.
I just find it difficult though to argue kind of who could be just as versatile as Tarobo, which is the reason why I'm okay kind of bumping him up to number one.
Okay.
My
Not that-
argument for him at number one would be that he's self-contained. He
That's
doesn't require synergy. He doesn't require anyone pumping him full of ki or moving him halfway across the board. He just does what he does, and that's great.
Yeah.
Mhm. Agreed,
That-
and
that's very
that's
important.
that's the other thing too, as we've been talking about, just the synergy with Tengu. So he checks that box off really well, and he does it, and I think you said it, Ben. He should be able to go into all the themes, I think, or yeah. So
Yeah, I think so.
he's definitely one of those models that you can build not around, but he's definitely a nice supplemental piece. That's like whatever you build around, he's going to be there. You can find 15 points to get him in there.
And then I'm
Yeah, he really makes those Blue Gale Scouts look like an absolute rip-off. And Hombo is a tough. Yeah, you're never going to pick Hombo instead of Tarobo. Never.
I'm going to switch screenshots here in a second because we're just talking now. All right. That way it also lets me. Yeah, I know. It's
a big change.
So
number two and number three are a little bit more difficult, but let me see what you guys are thinking for at least number two or number three, whatever you want, because I've got some thoughts on what number two I would actually be good with, especially after our talks.
Oh, me?
I'll let you. I mean, if you guys want me to tell you what I think number two is,
I'll go for it.
Yeah, I would like to
facilitate the conversation, Jace.
So for number two, after kind of our talk and especially with everything, I'm willing to concede my point to Ben here, especially since I had Nagabu as my honorable mention and list Nagabu probably as the number two, just for what Nagabu can do. As far as, again, we don't know how Kimmick is going to be is like a flavor of the month thing, but I just see Nagabu and our talks about him, just what he facilitates and what he means to Tengu as a whole. That's a solid number two for what he does and just everything else surrounding around him. A lot of the Tengu stuff that you want to do, he's got to broker it some way or another. Kimmick has to kind of rely on him a little bit. Bazembo to an extent too. A lot of other things in Tengu to an extent, they got to go through Nagabu at this point. So as an honorable mention, and considering I know you said that you had him as an honorable mention, Greg, I would be okay with saying that, you know what, he's made me see the light where it's like, nah, this is a number two model for the category and just what he means to the faction as a whole.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you guys think otherwise, or of the other models that we've talked about, but he seems to be the only other kind of common model that we've at least referenced one way or another. And sometimes that happens. I know in one of our other talks, we had an honorable mention make it to number one, and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, I would say because he showed up in some way, shape, or form in our lists and could easily, and again, I could have been nudged to have him into my top three. It's just Kimmick right now is is the more direct flavor of the month than Nagabu.
Mm.
Nagabu is going to take a little work for me to try to wrap my head around. Where Kimmick, I know exactly what Kimmick's going to do.
Kimmick has
And-
been written about in great length, so there's a user
Yeah.
guide for Kimmick. Nagabu's like
Kind
it's
of.
there,
Nagabu,
but it's on the card, and you got to get a
Right.
magnifying glass.
Yeah, it's going to take more thought. So I'll concede to that. Otherwise, I would have probably said at the number 2 or number 3 spot would have been Rehobo, just because he's poor man's version of Nagabu, and by poor man he really doesn't do much of what Nagabu does except act as a battery. So if you're looking for a battery and you're looking for it cheap, Rehobo's the guy to go with.
I think it's bad enough that I had 2 Koroko in my top 3. I don't think you can have another one in the top 3.
No. I would say it'd be one or the other. So it's really what you're looking at.
Yeah.
So I would be cool with Nagabu being number 2. Number 3, which was honestly, if you guys were going to agree with me, was where I was going to be like the more difficult sell because of just the variety of models that we've talked about.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
And especially with some of them that they do, but I just for cool points, I mean, even though I really like Canute, I mean, Zembo is cooler looking to me. Even though I really, really like Canute, I'm just like, this man is just like Hills man, barbarian, cool looking. And just what Zembo does, and also I respect Zembo that he almost one-shotted Wasapu without a second thought.
I'm surprised he didn't, quite honestly.
It was a poor damage roll. It's the only reason why he lived.
There you go.
But I would think I could see Zembo being like a solid number 3. Some of the other options that we've talked about, just from what I remember here, they do some things, but they need to work with other models more in unison. Zembo does to an extent, but
Zembo works perfectly well on his own.
Yeah.
I mean, he becomes really horrible if you combo him with stuff.
So he gets better. Some of the other models are like, this model can do well, but it gets better with so-and-so model, or it needs basically Nagabu to kind of facilitate doing these things. Zembo can stand on his own 2 legs and be like, yeah, you're getting a harpoon through some part of your body.
He can, but if you're going to get him for maximum effect, you partner him with a battery.
Well, yeah, but that's pretty much most of the any other models I feel like in this list that we talked about besides Chirobo.
Yeah. I'm good with Bazembo being the number 3, just because if I look at him and Canute and maybe even Hokubo, 2 of them are melee fighters, right? Yeah, Hokubo is just pretty much straightforward.
No, yeah, we didn't even talk about Hokubo today. He didn't even come up in the list. It's just we talked.
So they have to kind of get up and do that, which again, being the speed faction and being, certain other models can push you around and be able to do stuff. That's something. Bazembo is, I'm going to take a spot, I'm going to hold that spot, and then anybody that comes to me, I'm either going to shoot you from across the board, or I'm going to shoot you as you come to me. So he's having the fight come to him and being able to dish it out. And then when the time is right, he can move in and then do whatever he needs to do, whether it's hold a spot, kill somebody. That I like Bazembo. I guess that's my logical argument for tactics. I like Bazembo.
Yeah,
and
overall, like I said, he's just a really cool model.
Yeah, I do like the model. So,
I'm sad that Ashibe is not in there, but it's okay.
Uh,
I'm now like, can I even say that Nagabu should drop out and Ashibe should be in? No, that's ridiculous. He was my number 1.
I mean, you can always say one of those things. And the important thing, again, is like you got it out there, and it's just kind of it's nice to spur inspiration to others.
This is like a top 10 of the year for like video games or any other thing.
That's
it doesn't really matter. Yeah. It's the conversation that's
we're trying to create dissension on the boards and have people say, well, Greg doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, which is real easy because most of the time I don't. So yeah. So all right. So if I'm reading if I'm reading the tea leaves on this correctly, we have Bazembo at number 3.
Yep.
We have Nagabo at number 2, and we have Tarobo at number 1.
Yeah, no Kimmick because he's for hipsters.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, if you want to play on the easy mode, I guess you take.
Oh my God.
I mean, if you got to take the crutch, go for it. That's like saying if you got to take the crutch of Masanagi, Greg, go for it. Well, all right.
I mean, yeah, go
twisting
for it.
my arm. I mean, if you want to play a substandard faction, then play Ito.
How do you feel about baskets full of snakes?
I'm looking forward to seeing what that does.
I can't even remember what he does.
I'm very
Too long.
curious.
That would be really cool.
I'm in general. I love my Ito, but that's a whole other thing. So we have our top three, gentlemen. We've gotten there. So I thank you both for helping with it. Ben, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. I'm glad we were able to finally get our schedules to come together like the alignment of a planet.
It's weird. I've recorded 2 podcasts in the space of a week. I don't know what's going on, because the last time I recorded the podcast was like June, I think.
This is just productive week for you. It's just like, boom, gonna be like.
It's because other people get to do the organising, and I just turn up, which turns out is a winner.
That's how talent is supposed to be. You just show up.
Exactly. Do you have anything that you wish to plug, sir? Podcast? I know that you do the Robot Dice Explosion with Gordon and that group, or if you have anything else that you're working on.
With Ol. So Robot Dice Explosion hasn't recorded anything for ages, but we will at some point. So many other people have stepped up with Bushido content that we felt sort of less pressured to do any. We're not a Bushido podcast, obviously, but yeah. So we will be back at some point. Also, Ol's been moving house for like the last 9 months. It feels like. It's a whole saga. I won't bore you. Buy my stuff from Mastercraft Miniatures, please. I like my mortgage payments going through. I've got a load of stuff coming out soon, but I have really poor executive function and I'm really behind on some stuff for GCT. So I've put a load of the Mastercraft Miniatures stuff on the back burner. But I've got loads of cool things coming out. So much of it is like putting it into the back end of the web store, which is so tedious. So yeah.
All right.
So look at that. So we'll get that link for you, and we'll hopefully be able to link that, and at least for sure the podcast. I can add that in here. I'll work with Greg on be able to link that in the video below.
And I've got that document about the development of, or rather the sculpting of the Bushido, so the Descension faction. So I'll send that link to you any second now, and you can jump that in the show notes or something.
Excellent.
Oh, awesome.
We will put that all in there, and definitely, hopefully, people will now start looking at some more Mastercraft, especially on this side of the pond. And for everyone else, thank you so much for listening and watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode again and got some value out of it. If you did, or more importantly, before you even start clicking that like and ringing that bell and all the rest of that, leave some comments. We definitely want to get your idea of what your top 3 is. We love hearing how people disagree with us, which is more often than not too often, but Bushido's a game, and this is a faction that has a whole lot of options, as we've just talked about, and I think it's probably been one of our more diverse top 3s. So please chime in, let us know what you think, or just let us know what you think about the podcast / video or all that stuff. Love to get your feedback on it to how we can improve things. And again, if you did like what we're doing, ring that bell, give us a like. Tell us, that helps us know a little quicker that you're enjoying what we're doing so we could keep at it. And last but not least, subscribe. I always like having those subscribers. What could it get you? Absolutely nothing right now, but you will be knowing when our stuff is up and ready for you to listen to help you slog through your pile of shame of painting.
This is true.
So with that being said, Ben, Jason, it's been great having you both on. Ben, it's been a pleasure, absolutely. And for everybody else, thank you so much for listening. Have a great day or evening, wherever you may be. So long.
우연나 우스가 잘 온나 그래 우야랑